Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace, episode 228 on Sifted Games at sifted.net, the world's most advanced gaming website. We have a great show for you guys today. Tons of big stuff has happened over the last week. And the crazy part is it's from like all the big three. So we're going to have big topics for each one of those. We got 2 or 3 huge games to talk about today. Alongside me to do that is Matthew Kyle. What's up, Matt?
Hey.
How's the week been?
Smoky.
Yeah,
warm.
A lot worse on your side of town than it is on mine.
Yeah, I mean, up north it's worse because it looks like Mars, but we might be getting some of that tomorrow. So we'll see. And
it finally cooled off. It's been 100 degrees on the west side, which never happens.
On Sunday it was 109 here.
It's insane. The weather is nuts. It was 101 yesterday in Colorado, and it's snowing today.
Yep.
In the same place where it was 101, today it's snowing.
So no one gets to criticize weird video game biomes ever again. Because Colorado exists.
That's absolutely true. Running TriCaster today, we got Jared, who is a big Chiefs fan, and the Chiefs kick off football tomorrow night. Are you excited about it, Jared?
I am. I'm very excited. It's finally something to watch. I know my parents are very excited. In Missouri,
and you're actually from Missouri, so
yes.
You're a legit OG Chiefs fan.
Yes, and I even went to a game last year, so.
Nice.
Yeah.
Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs, I should add.
Yeah, and I was looking forward to buying Madden until your review last week. So if there's no season this year, I'm just out of luck.
Well, the good news is you can probably go buy Madden from last year now for like $10, and it's just as good. And you can probably download updated rosters, and you'll be fine. But anyway, the NFL season does kick off tomorrow. Good luck in tomorrow night's game. We had our Sifted Fantasy Football Draft on Labor Day on Monday. That was a ton of fun hanging out with the crew for a couple hours, and we're ready to rock on that. We're ready to also rock with the show. We can't spend too much time on the intro because we have a lot to get to. But if you're interested in following either myself or Matt, you can find myself at Dinfire. You can find Matt at MKyle. That's MKEIL. And if you listen to this show on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, wherever, and you want to know when the show is going to go live, follow us on Twitter at Sifted Games. And with that, here's a word from our sponsor.
Do you live life outdoors? DeShazer Ryan Realty has a nice level lot just outside of Libby, Montana that's perfect for you. With access to Crystal Lake via shared dock and boat ramp, it's an ideal location to build the getaway home of your dreams or just park your RV. Enjoy fishing, paddleboarding, kayaking, boating, and more just a few steps away. It can be yours for just $72,500. No matter where you live, contact Doug DeShazer at 406-291-1643 or DeShazerMT@gmail.com. Even if you're not looking for property in Montana, he can connect you with local realtors in your area who can help you. If you want to see more, head over to DeShazerRyanRealty.com. That's DeShazerRyanRealty.com.
Thanks again to DeShazer Ryan Realty for sponsoring the show. If you need real estate anywhere in the United States, give them a call. Let's keep the money in the family. All right, it's time for our poll of the week. This week's poll of the week, I thought, would generate a lot of response. It ended up being one of our least responded polls that we've done so far since we launched the poll of the week. And the poll of the week was PlayStation games for PC should wait X amount of time before being released for PC. The options were 6 months, a year, 18 months, 2 years, and never. Okay, Jared, reveal the responses. So the winner, hands down, was 6 months. This is one of the first polls I was really surprised by. Now, the angle to this, Matt, is that you have PC players who want them immediately, but are trying to be reasonable. And I think they're going to fall into that. And then I think anybody who doesn't own a PlayStation is going to lean towards the shorter time frame. Do you think 6 months is even feasible?
No, not a chance.
Yeah, that's never happening. That's crazy, though. 35% of those polled said 6 months. I was pretty surprised by that.
I mean, what you want and what is feasible are two different things. So.
Yeah.
Nobody's asking anyone to be realistic. Just that's what they'd want.
Yep. And then the second most popular response was a year. Again, the second shortest amount of time. Again, you basically have everyone who's not a PlayStation owner voting for timetables that are as short as possible, basically.
I think a year is the lowest end possibility, but I think it's possible. I don't think a year is crazy.
Yeah, it's still on the fringe for me, I think. And then what you and I had agreed to last week, 18 months, that only got 12% of the vote.
Because it's realistic.
It is because it is realistic and more likely. And then 2 years got 21% of the vote. And now you're starting to see the PlayStation fans only owners in the next two, which are 21% for 2 years and never 5%. So 25%.
To be fair, I know a couple of PC-centric players who would say never because they don't ever want to play Sony's garbage, in their words.
Right.
Like there's some PC snobbery in place as well.
There absolutely is. Anything that stands out to you from the poll, Matt, other than the shortest time frame being the most popular?
Like, I'm a little surprised 18 months wasn't more popular because that's probably what it would be.
Right. They start being aggressive with it, you mean?
Yeah. Then again, you don't have to agree with Sony's corporate choices. I mean, Sure. I bet if you'd had a day one option, that would have won. So
yeah, probably. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it would have won. It probably would have got the 35%. One thing I will say is we didn't get a ton of votes on this week's poll, but we got some really great comments. In fact, maybe some of the best that we've had since we started doing the poll of the week. The first one is up from Nightmare 452. He says, I voted 6 months. This gives them plenty of time to get sales on PS5 and still make the game feel relevant when it finally comes to PC. Waiting a year or two seems like a long time to wait for just a port. Good point. Sony needs to step up and make their developers make their game with PS5 and PC in mind from the get-go. How do you feel about that?
That's wrong.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I just completely disagree with that.
It's not Sony's interest at all to do that.
It's not good for business. It's not good for... I don't want it. I want Sony's games to write to the metal of PlayStation hardware. I want them to push PlayStation hardware. And what you're asking for is them to basically compromise in some way the PlayStation 5 version so that the PC version can come more quickly. I completely disagree with that.
No, I said last week, it should be like, do the PlayStation version, get the PlayStation version done, polish it up to what it needs to be, and then hand it over to somebody else to port it.
Yep.
Like, don't even worry about it. Don't make the people who create the games worry about making it work on PC. Like, just
agree 1,000%.
Hand it over and move on to your next PlayStation project. Have dedicated team or teams doing the PC stuff.
Yep. Next up, Polak. I chose 2 years as I want the devs focusing on making the best possible games for the hardware first, and then that time frame allows for a good port to be done.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably more realistic in the end.
Really.
I could see a world where they sort of constantly say it'll be 18 months, but it ends up being closer to 2 years, because things slip, which is, again, better than not getting it. But I get the concern about having it stay relevant because 2 years is an eternity in game development. But unless you're working on Star Citizen, but it's probably that's where you're at, is about 18 months to 2 years if that becomes a regular thing. Although again, if they took your suggestion and made an internal port house, that might shorten eventually.
Yep. Agreed. Next up from Mountain Lifter, Sony should release their games on PC on day one after a few years into the console life cycle, say 3 years. If I didn't have a PS5 and a new game release for both PS5 and PC early in the console's life, I would probably get the PC version instead of buying a PS5. So here's a unique approach to this. He's saying once PlayStation 5 hits 3 years old, then it's day and date on PS5 and PC. How do you feel about that?
I think exclusives still sell systems no matter how late in the system's life it is. And I think Spider-Man really drove that home. So,
there's still a lot of consoles to be sold.
Again, that's better for the consumer who only has a PC, but it's not better for Sony who's fronting the money for it. So I wouldn't agree with that either.
Yeah, I don't think they sell. It's not just about the first 3 years. Yeah. They continue to sell millions and millions of consoles every year. You're basically saying, after year 3, we're cool with the installed base, and that's that.
Yeah, and especially like last gen, the PlayStation 3 actually did sell the most units in the end of all three systems, despite the Wii blowing the doors off everything.
And 360 having a huge
and 360, but so the long game matters. Like it's definitely in play, and part of the reason PlayStation 3 had such long legs is its exclusive library. So
Yep. And then anyway, I like that comment because it created a great conversation. So I like how you're thinking, Mountain Lifter. The last comment comes from Don Lionheart. He says, I think that if Sony really wants to encourage people to buy the PS5, they need to wait a good chunk of time so that people don't fall under the Microsoft problem of why buy the Xbox? I can just get a powerful PC. Personally, that's exactly how I feel. So the longer Sony's wait, the better. Totally get that perspective too.
Sure. And like that's... it's a different situation with Microsoft because they still pretty much control the environment if you're buying stuff on Windows. So, you're in the Microsoft ecosystem whether you like it or not most of the time if you're playing Xbox games.
Yep, that's absolutely true.
And Sony doesn't have that advantage. Sony's more Sony's advantage in that cord is more the Blu-ray drive. Oh.
Yeah, we just lost you for a second. You stalled.
Freeze there.
Yeah, your connection is red, by the way. Yeah.
Well,
now it's yellow.
Let me force the computer to switch to wired.
Okay.
It might not be doing that properly.
But anyway, thanks you guys for responding to the poll of the week. Another one will be up in the next day or two. It'll be, as always, a link will be in the header of the site at sifted.net. And we appreciate your input because it actually generates great conversation between Matt and I as we discuss kind of your points. So thanks again and look for a new poll of the week soon. And with that, it's time to kick off the show proper. And you guys knew what we were going to kick off the show with, and that is the Xbox Series S, not the X. Long rumored, Lockhart, finally a reality. All the information has pretty much come out at this point about both it and the Series X at this point. Basically, a leak of an image 2 days ago forced Microsoft's hand, and then yesterday, it put out the first trailer for the Series S. And then today, it really blew it out and put up this big, 10-minute documentary about it. Explaining how they developed it and what the concepts and the ideas were behind it. But really, what it comes down to is that all the rumors were right. Lockhart is a lower-powered Xbox Series, whatever you want to call it. It's a lot smaller, as you can see from the B-roll that we're showing right now. In fact, it's the smallest Xbox console ever released, or it will be when it comes out.
Which is not a huge claim when it comes down to it. Xboxes have always been rather hefty.
Right. But although the One X is a pretty sleek machine. So I'm not that surprised that they got it down to be smaller than the One X even, which is pretty impressive. And most importantly, it is cheaper. The Xbox One S is $300. And although this hasn't quite been announced officially yet, everyone kind of is assuming, or some people are saying that they know that Xbox One X will in fact cost $500. Now, there are differences between the consoles. And I'm just going to run through the specs of the Series S really quickly here. It has a 512 gig hard drive. Oy vey.
Which is nothing.
Oh my God. And because of it has no disk drive, which was nobody knew up until 2 days ago, whether it was going to have a drive or not. It does not have a drive, and it only has a 512 gig hard drive. However, it will have ray tracing, variable rate shading, variable refresh rates, basically all the things that high-end PC gamers have grown accustomed to using and loving. And then, as I said, it's $300, and it is coming out November 10th alongside Xbox Series X. So, Matt, no real surprises here. They did say it would have 4K media playback. It will have 4K game upscaling, but it only plays at 2K, 1440p, but it can run up to 120 frames per second. Are you surprised that there was no surprise, Matt?
Not really. I mean, Microsoft hasn't been rocking the boat tremendously with these. The $500 price is on their blog, by the way. That's real.
Okay.
So your move, Sony. But
Which we heard was going to happen today. In fact, when I was stacking this episode, I left a topic at the end for the PlayStation 5 price and release date, because rumors were swirling yesterday that, okay, now Sony's going to announce tomorrow. That did not happen, and I had to completely rejigger the show and redo our lower thirds. But anyway.
From what I understand, they would have liked to, but it couldn't be gotten together in time.
Okay. That would be pretty quick.
Soon,
if you didn't have everything together already, that is a very short time.
Well, because I don't think anybody thought, I mean, this precipitated from a leaker. Yeah. None of this was how it was planned. So. Yeah,
well, we kept talking for months about who's going to blink first. Someone asked Pactor who's going to blink first. And then it ended up nobody blinked. It was just leaked. And then the floodgates just opened. And that was it.
And this guy, the other thing, of course, the guy who leaked, I can't remember his name, but the guy who leaked it is kind of a known Microsoft leaker. Like he's been on target with everything for a long time. So everybody took it as pretty much probably true.
Word is bond.
And there you go. So I would be surprised if we don't know everything about the PlayStation 5 similar info by the end of the week. But obviously no one saw this coming. So
meaning within the next couple of days. So
I think so.
Friday or Monday.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't know what their plan was or when they intended to do it. I mean, because people forget, like the Switch was announced and shown for the first time like 50 days before the launch. You know, it was like January 17th, came out on like March, whatever, early March. Like, apparently that's the new normal is, the final details on these things come out sooner, as close to the launch as possible, I guess, to not screw over the retail distributors. Yeah.
And also, it's also, I think part of it too is knowing that you only have so many units available at launch. And it's that, the story can go either way. It can either go, oh my gosh, they're sold out because everybody wants it and now I want it. Or it could be like, I can't find them anywhere. It's not that compelling. I'm going to buy a PS5.
Yeah. So, and like, that's probably the closer to the launch stuff is probably better for that because then you don't have months and months where people are just like, oh, it's just gone and I have nothing to look at. And like, there's not going to be any more. So I'm just sitting here stewing over the fact that I don't get to have the new console.
Yeah.
So having a shorter, like a 6-week run up to it is probably better. The question becomes like, I guess, so they said the pre-orders start September 22nd for the Xboxes. You wonder what the date was originally planned to be for PlayStation and whether they can move that up or whether that was later. Who knows?
Yeah, because all that has to be set up with the retail websites and all that sort of stuff and promotion and marketing. All those parts have to work together in concert to...
Yeah. And you wonder about optics on the pricing because here we have the two Xbox models very far apart in price, and understandably so because of the lack of a drive and the smaller hard drive and the lesser power, etc. And then you have the two models of the PlayStation 5, which we're expecting to either be the same price or fairly small and differential in price. And you wonder what the optics of that will be to a less informed consumer who doesn't understand why you get this huge deal on the S. And the PlayStation discless is like still like $50 cheaper or something, if it is at all. So I wonder what they'll do about that. Cause I know everybody thought that like Lockhart would be cheaper or a different model. Like, I don't know if anyone thought it was maybe $200 cheaper. I certainly hoped it would be, but I wouldn't have been surprised if it wasn't.
Didn't we say we thought it was going to be 3 and 5? I thought that's what.
Yeah, that was what I said. Ideally, they should do. I didn't. Yeah. I wasn't.
You didn't think they'd do it.
Betting on them doing the smart thing. Look, like we've been saying for months, a cent over $500, and you're out of your mind on these new systems. Microsoft apparently agrees. We'll see if Sony
it's going to lose its ass on this console.
Yeah, and it knows that. It's playing catch up, and Microsoft knows they have to do that. It's just where they are right now. And they aren't ready for this launch with software that's going to pull you in regardless of price. So they got to make it look like a deal. Will Sony match that price becomes the question.
It will. I think
they have to.
I think they have to. I don't think they'll match the 300 for the digital version. No. I think that'll be 400 is my guess. I don't think they want to price it at 4, but I think they will now because...
my instinct still says it will be the same price, but include a couple digital games. Okay. Like, I don't think they will split the price.
Which is what Pactor says is typically what happens. So you're probably right. That is kind of the going trend anyway.
Yeah. Also, I just don't think the lack of a physical Blu-ray drive makes that much price difference.
It shouldn't.
It shouldn't. No.
Really, it's like $10 is what it should.
It's like the only reason is like to do the price differential would be because people just expect it because it has quote unquote less. Right. So you put in a couple of game codes, which costs you literally nothing to make it look like a better value and charge the same amount of money.
Yeah.
So that's what I think PlayStation 5 will do.
What do you think of the big black dot?
I think it looks silly. I think it looks silly, but like
I do too. I think it looks awful.
It looks
I don't understand it.
It looks like a rejected Zune design.
When I first saw it, I thought it was like the new iPod, and they don't even make iPods anymore. So, or maybe you're right. It is like the new Zune. I was like, I don't know. I don't like the look of it at all. I do like that the dot's on the top though, so you won't see it most of the time. It's just. Yeah. Whatever, but I don't care because I'm never going to own one. So, well, that's okay. So I have a bunch of questions that you and I are going to try to answer together. The first one is, which Xbox should people buy? Now I know we're going to buy the most powerful versions because we need to. But if someone's asking you, they're like, okay, I've already decided that I want the new Xbox. I've decided I want it over PlayStation or whatever. They've told you that they want the new Xbox. Which one do you tell them to buy, Matt? If they're the typical person who maybe buys 5-6 games a year max.
I mean, it kind of comes down to like, do you have a 4K TV?
So that's another question. Does that matter?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, okay. Yeah, you're right. That does matter. I was going to say like some people have 2K TVs that aren't quite 4K. And would it make a difference if they only had a 2K TV?
I mean, if you have a 2K TV, you either have a computer monitor or a shitty thing.
Right.
So there's not really much you can do about it.
Yeah. So you would say that if they have a 4K TV, they should buy the $500 model? Because if they have a 4K TV, I guess my point, what I'm getting at is the jump from 2K to 4K worth $200 for the average consumer? I should have just asked that in the first place.
It depends. The average consumer probably doesn't know the difference.
Do you think most people will be able to see the difference?
I think in general you probably can if you have a quality television. The problem is, you're still kind of probably gonna be stuck spending extra money because of the size of the hard drive, and I just don't know. Also, there was some leaks about a possible cost for the expansion drive that will go in these things, which was a crazy price. It was $219. For a 1 terabyte SSD expansion.
Well, you're only getting 500 gigs to begin with on an all digital piece of hardware.
Which is like if you don't have, sorry, somebody's banging on my door.
Hopefully, it's not the thieves coming back, Matt.
No, I think it's UPS.
Oh,
but apparently I'm not getting my package today because they took it away.
That sucks. Sorry, man.
Why in the world are you requiring signatures in this day and age? But the so I just don't know. I have a friend I know who is more of a casual gamer that I would recommend he get the higher price one because I know he will notice the difference in performance.
He's like a video file.
Yeah, he's like he knows video and audio stuff, so he would definitely notice the difference. Someone who just wants to that's the other thing is I don't know, a really casual player, I wouldn't tell him to get an Xbox.
No, but I'm saying they've already decided that's what they want. They like Halo, they like Gears, they like the games that Xbox offers. I would tell him, I'll be honest with you.
I don't know this mythical person.
I'm going to tell most people to get the cheaper version. I just don't think most people are going to be able to see the difference in between 2K and 4K. And when it still has all the other features that make it next gen, like the SSD and the quick loading and the development opportunities that provides, it's hard for me to tell someone to spend an extra $200. Now, you or I, sure. Of course, you were always going to buy the most expensive version to get the best fidelity, but I don't know. Like people on Sifted, I'd probably recommend they buy the more expensive version. But the vast majority of people who ask me about games, people in my family, my friends, people like that, it's hard for me to recommend the $500 version. It just is.
I don't know. I know they say what they say, but I need to see some I need to see some Digital Foundry videos that prove that this thing actually runs at the same level as the X.
Is it really 2K or is it some checkerboard crap that's like getting it to 2K? Right. I mean,
or is it capable of 2K, but really it runs at 1080p most of the time?
Right.
Which is fine if you don't. That's why I say the 4K 4K TV is sort of the key differential there, is because if you don't have a 4K TV, it's not going to matter.
Who cares? Yeah, I mean, if you only have a 1080p TV, the $300 version is the winner, hands down. Yeah,
and like even if it does go up, you're kind of downscaling, and it makes it look even better at 1080p.
Yep.
So there's no downside if you don't have a 4K TV to just buying this one.
Yep. Couple more questions.
Other than the hard drive size.
Yeah. Which will sell more?
I think the X will sell more.
Yeah, the more expensive one?
At least out of the gate, because I think the hardcore early adopter crowd is going to go for the power.
Okay, that makes sense.
In the long run, the S might be the winner, but I think at least in the first 6 months, I think the X is going to be selling more.
I don't know. Because it's coming out right before Christmas and there's going to be a lot of gift giving happening, I think the cheaper version has a chance to outsell the more powerful version. A lot of it's going to depend on how much they make of each one as well.
Right. I think the X will sell out immediately, and you will still be able to find the S semi-regularly on shelves if you are going into actual stores in the plague year.
Yeah, exactly. There may not be a thing even. I think it'll be close. I think the cheaper version is going to sell more than people expect, because I think most people are just going to assume it's the next generation. You want the most powerful console. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people will be able to look at the Series S and say, this is a much more powerful console. Like, this feels like next gen to me. So I think it's going to be close. And then just a couple more notes. Microsoft is pushing Xbox All Access hardcore with the Series X and the Series S, and it's readjusted kind of the plans a little bit. Basically, you can get the Series S for $25 a month with nothing down, and you can get the Series X for $35 a month with nothing down, and you have to pay that amount for 24 months, at which point you would pay off the console, and at which point you would own the console. Matt, do you think this is going to make a difference, make a dent in any way?
I don't know.
It's hard to predict, isn't it? Because the messaging is the hard part. It's like they've had this program for a long time, like the last at least 2 years for Xbox One S, Xbox One X, and it didn't really catch on, but then they didn't really market it. Like, I never saw a TV commercial for it. They put out a trailer, and that was like all they ever did. And we ended up having to use that trailer a billion times across all the shows that we've talked about it. But anyway, I don't know if it's going to work if they don't put money behind it. If people don't know about it, they can't do it. And I just wonder how they get that message out there that, hey, we have this like layaway plan thingy for Xbox. I mean, if they do get the message out, Matt, with tens of millions of Americans unemployed right now, I mean, it could provide a nice bump. There's a lot of people out there who, maybe worried that they may lose their job, maybe lost their job. If they feel like they think they're going to get a job in the next couple months and they can pay $35 for a couple months until they get their job, they might jump in. I think it has an opportunity to do something, but Microsoft has to handle it correctly.
As long as it doesn't like cost more than just buying it outright, which it doesn't. They should make that clear too.
Yeah.
Maybe Americans do love to owe more money for a luxury item now. But I don't know. I just don't know. Like, I don't do that. Like, I know I'm in a different like financial position in general, but like, even when I didn't have much money to spend as a kid, like if I couldn't afford it, I didn't buy it. You know what I mean?
I've never done a layaway in my life.
No, not ever buy.
Never. Yeah, I don't think I've ever done it. I do remember my mom doing it when I was a kid, and we go to Hills, which was like Walmart before Walmart existed. And we would go in there and she'd like put a little bit down on whatever it was every week or whatever. And eventually she'd pay it all off. So, I
mean, it's super common. It's just like something I would never, like, I wouldn't do that for a non-necessity, I guess is what I'd say.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
Like if you got to do it to survive, like, or like you just need to get to the next paycheck, like absolutely. But for a video game system, it seems like you should, I don't know. I have always made sure that I could just afford the luxury item before I did it. I realize that is not necessarily true.
Yeah, that doesn't work for a lot of people, unfortunately.
It's not how the economy works. But
I think we both are skeptical.
I'm skeptical about it also just because it's like it's just like it's a 2-year commitment to paying this thing off, and I'm like, I can't guarantee you're still going to enjoy an Xbox 2 years from now because I'm so skeptical about what its library is going to look like. You know, like if it was a PS5, I might feel better about it, frankly, because I know there's going to both agree
it's going to be better than the Xbox One's library. Fair.
Yeah, I mean, because it's going to have the Xbox One's library plus. So there you go.
But I think the output, the new game output, will be better. First party output.
I would think so.
Than it was for Xbox One.
By around the time you finish paying it off, the new studios will be paying
That's a good point, actually. They'll start releasing their games finally.
Yeah.
And then the final sort of announcement was that EA Play is going to be free and a part of EA Game Pass. Does anyone care? I mean, you get Madden early, but it's already out.
Does it get me early? Does it get me Star Wars Squadrons early? Because that's the only thing I care about that they're putting out.
Yeah, I don't know.
Does it get me a free copy of the Mass Effect remaster in February? Because I care about that.
And if that stuff does, in fact, become a part of EA Play, then it actually could add some significant value.
Yeah. But I feel like it's just going to be the usual thing. It's like, oh, you want to buy it? It's like $5 off.
Yeah, and it's just getting confusing. It's like, so what's the pitch for Xbox One X and Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S? What is it? It's really powerful, but not very powerful at all. Really expensive, but also really cheap. And hey, if you really want to make it work, here's this layaway plan we have. And if you're not convinced yet, you can also play EA's games on this service that they have that we're bringing into our. It just starts to become crazy. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think you have.
It's very hard to come up with an elevator pitch for this.
It is. It really is. And that's the problem. And that's what people want. They want one sentence that they can hear that will help them decide things. And you just aren't going to get that with the new Xbox platform. So does hearing any of this make you believe that their chances are any better than they were before?
I mean, not really. I think the PS5 is going to do much better out of the gate. I mean, they're both going to sell out. Like, let's be honest. Like, it's going to be hard to compare early on. Yeah. But I think in the first year, I think the PlayStation 5 is going to outpace the Xbox simply on the back of its first-party library and its brand name.
Yep. Or how about the fact that its games just look better right now?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
we haven't even seen Xbox Series X gameplay, really.
Nope,
anything.
Not like legit to the metal first party business.
Like that, or even just stuff running on it really hasn't been shown. Like even stuff like, even that Halo thing wasn't on the Series X. And it's almost significant that they showed Gears running on the Series S. Because that's one of the only presentation. Yeah, it's one of the only things we've seen running on the new system, like legitimately running on the new system. And it's, doesn't really blow me out. It doesn't really blow me out the back of the theater.
I mean, we're supposed to pre-order it in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
That's when they go on sale. And if chances are, if you want one for the holidays, you better be there. Is it September 22nd? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
22nd. Yep. So if you got your eye on one, you might want to get ready to plunk down some.
I mean, I'm sure you'll be able to resell it if you change your mind.
Yeah. If you may have to sit on it till Christmas, maybe. But
but I would imagine there'll be some demand. It won't be like. But we'll see. I mean, the Switch didn't really. Yeah, the Switch. I mean, I'm not saying you could scalp it for more money or anything. I'm just saying,
no. You just get your money back if you.
Yeah, when the Switch came out and it sold out, you couldn't really scalp it for anything, but you could definitely find a buyer if you didn't want it anymore.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, actually, scalpers were doing better at the beginning of this year with Switch. My brother-in-law paid like $400 and some for a Switch on eBay.
Yeah, there's still people on Amazon trying to charge $54 for a 6-case of Bounty. Like
it's like, bro,
it's like it's not why they're called that, dude.
Before we move on, for the record, I do want to say that I do think that this helped Xbox's chances a little bit. I'm having a $300 version of your console that I believe most people are not going to be able to see the difference between that and the $500 version. I think that helps. So how much? I don't know, but I do think it helps. And I do think, some people will get in on Xbox All Access. And maybe it's a viral thing. If people start using it and they start talking about it, other people use it. I don't think it's going to be that impactful, but it could help a little bit. So
I would say the hard drive is so small.
Yeah, I know.
It's so weird. I mean, I know that you got to save money because SSD is not cheap even
so
still
bad,
today.
Dude. 500 gigs. That filled up in no time when the PlayStation 4 launched.
Well, you're probably looking more like 450 when you're talking about the OS footprint.
right now, Modern Warfare is like approaching like 200 gigs.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
That's one game. That's almost half of your hard drive.
So, and it's a game that you wouldn't want to uninstall. Yeah. It's a game you'd have on your hard drive for a year at least, because that's what you play.
Yep. And as you mentioned, the proprietary storage that they seem to be deploying for Xbox Series whatever is really freaking expensive. So
now look, I mean, there are people that doubted that price and were kind of like, look, if this thing is, you know, the exact same item, if you buy it separately without the Xbox branding is like $99. So
for how
like
big?
1 terabyte. And so it's like that might have been a mistake, might have been a preliminary thing, might have been Canadian dollars. Who freaking knows? But like
still an extra $100.
Yeah.
That gets you up to 400 that you've then spent on the Series S, and you only have an extra 500 gigs of space above what you would have got on the X, because the X is 1 terabyte, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're at 1.5 terabytes at that point on your S, and you're at $400. So I don't know.
And if you're trying to like, if you're trying to pull in your old library and like play stuff, you know, with backwards compatibility, like, you know, you can fill that up real fast.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's what they're pitching as well.
Right.
Play all your old games.
Like really, storage should be a big deal.
It should be. It's very weird. I mean, SSDs are expensive. That's probably one of the biggest issues for them to keep the price down to a reasonable spot. So,
well, like one of the things, you know, maybe this was too late in the game for that to be a thing. Like one of the big techs I would have wanted to research for this is the ability to plug in an external hard drive that's just a regular hard drive and have some kind of thing, almost the way PlayStation does it, where they've got like that, the fast access tech, but do something with that lets you swap and install from the regular hard drive to the SSD really fast.
Interesting.
And give you like close as you can to like really close to instant access. Like you say, oh, I want to unarchive this and do this. I'm sure it will do that, but I wonder how long it will take. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You are limited by how fast a hard drive can be accessed, a non-SSD hard drive can be accessed, but it just seems like there's going to be a lot of swapping if you don't and eventually you're just going to end up getting so frustrated, you'll go ahead and give them your money for the SSD expansion. Like that seems to be the plan
all along. So anyway, there you go. That's the Xbox Series S, and for all intents and purposes, the Xbox Series X as well. We finally have all the details on both of them. We know launch date, we know price.
There's really nothing left to know.
Yeah, I mean, we mostly know the launch lineup, which obviously isn't as exciting as we had hoped.
Yeah, which isn't. Let's just say that it isn't for the most part.
It's not.
Like, is there an exclusive thing on the launch lineup that? I mean, I know it's playable on PC and Xbox One. You know, there's no exclusive in that sense. But is there anything launching that's
really.
Like? It's just multi-platform stuff, really, right?
Yeah. I mean,
it looks like
games. I mean, its big game is Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed bumped up its release so it could release with the Series X and the Series S,
which
coming out a week earlier now.
Which is exactly what I said was going to happen. I said they're going to, you know, Assassin's Creed launches with the Xbox, and then Watch Dogs Legion launches with the PlayStation 5 So let's keep an eye on that.
Yep.
November 10th, like we moved up. I am very curious if Cyberpunk will move up. Because here's the thing. November 19th is the release date for Cyberpunk, right? That's a Thursday. Games don't come out on Thursday. They come out on Friday.
They do if they're Cyberpunk 2077.
That's the punk part, I guess. They won't be constrained by your traditional shipping
by your
rules.
Tuesdays and Fridays. It is bizarre, but I
mean, they might be talking about how like, or you get midnight access or like 9 p.m. Pacific access on the.
I mean, let's
19th,
be honest. CD Projekt Red wants to stay away from other big games too. Like, look, it knows it's going to have the best-selling game of Q4 in most likelihood anyway. But he still wants to stay away from big games like Assassin's Creed that could conceivably lure someone away. So I don't think they're that bullheaded or that conceited that they would be like, you know what, we're just going to roll. Because you also have to remember, you're also getting Black Ops Cold War, which we're going to talk about later in the show. You're also getting that on November 13th. So there's all this big stuff rolling in there. I think.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to move up because then you'd be right up against it.
Yeah, I think they'll stay where they are. But we'll see. You never know.
I could see them moving up to that Tuesday instead of that Friday.
That could work. That would get them clear. Well, they'd still be real close to Call of Duty, unfortunately.
Yeah, but they'd be past the weekend.
Yep, so it's true.
I mean, that might be all you can hope for at this point.
Yeah, November's looking great. It's really looking like an awesome month for video games, as it should be every stinking year. All right, we're going to move on. We're going to talk next about Marvel's Avengers. So last week, Matt had been playing it. I had not played it. I had got the code and did not have a chance to play. I had said last week that we would not talk about it again unless I spent some time with it. And I have. In fact, I'm pretty much right at the end of the game. It sounds like I'm kind of maybe a little bit further than where Matt was when we did the show last week. And Matt has also continued to play. So
I think you are exactly where I was.
Oh, okay. So we are going to discuss it one last time and give you our final takes on the game. The first thing I would say is I've been seeing lots of reports online about bugs and glitches and crashes, and I have had plenty of those. I don't know if you have, Matt.
I haven't had any crashes, but I have had just weird little bugs, just like animation glitches and characters pop back and forth on things and like just a couple things that I was like, what was that? Okay, fine. But I haven't had anything like game breaking.
I haven't had
the fall through the world and get the auto save in and have to delete your save thing.
I haven't had that. I've had like twice it's been that the game just froze at vendors. Go into the vendor menu and it just freezes and you can't do anything. You can't even hit the PlayStation button to go back to the home screen on the PS4. It's just locked. So that happened twice at different vendors, not the same vendor either. And then another time the game just stopped working. The camera froze on a spot in the level and it just stayed there. And that I was able to get back out of, get to the home screen, close the game, restart it. I had another bug towards the end of the game. There's this point where you need to get into the ship's hangar to do something. I'm trying not to spoil anything. And I needed to talk to someone before the ship's hangar door would activate so I could go through it. And the person I needed to talk to would not activate. So I had to do the same thing. Leave the game, turn the game off, close it out, start it over again. And when I loaded the save, he was active and I was able to continue.
The B-roll right here, like last week I talked about the part where I jumped and I kind of auto-swung and fell and it reset me. And then I swung one extra thing and it took a minute and a half to load. It was right there where she was about to jump on the bars there. That's
I just jumped
happened.
And fell because that part in particular, the context-sensitive swing prompts don't come up quickly.
No, they don't pop up in the right timing on that.
And
section.
Look, I've been across a lot of stuff like that in this game. Not a ton, but a lot.
There's been a few things, even like just like, holding square to activate things. Sometimes I'm like, you should just give me that. Like you have to angle yourself at the control panel a certain way.
It's hilarious. Like my character is like just running like two steps, trying to get to where the prompt will. Here's a tip for game developers. If my character is within 3 virtual feet of just put the prompt
just
up.
Let it happen and suck me into the animation.
Yeah, I'm totally cool with that. It's so freaking annoying. It's a little thing that adds up over the course of the game. Like there have been sometimes in the game where I went to a door and nothing popped up and I was like, okay, I don't have to go that way. And then I run off and it turns out that the prompt just didn't pop up on the door. And I go back and after I ran around, I'm like, what? And I go back and double check and then it pops up that time. Like, yeah, it's more annoying than most games that have that problem, I guess is the best way I can put it.
I mean, it's got a lot of quality of life problems, basically. Yeah. And things I would recommend, there's like little things like, every day you have daily objectives like any kind of game like this for like for PIM's group and for the Shield group, and you have to talk to the individual representatives of those groups to get those objectives. And that's fine when you're on the helicarrier, you got to talk to the Shield woman about it. But then you got to go all the way to the other base and sit through that load screen and run up and talk to that woman and get all the things. And then you got nothing else to do. All you did was sit through like a minute-long load screen to get a bunch of stuff that really should be automatically added to you every day. Yeah. It's just, and it's just things that like Destiny didn't know. I mean, Destiny had similar problems at launch too, but it's like Destiny went through that so you could learn from that and not have these problems at launch, but here we are. And those are very minor things, and that comes from, I finish the campaign and do some like every other day or so I play it again. And I've done some of the post-campaign storyline things and the solo stuff and the things they throw at you for that. And those are all fun. And they've stayed more fun, even though they're less story intensive, they don't have like elaborate cutscenes or anything, But it is fun to, finally have all four, my choice of 4 Avengers running around doing stuff and working together. And there's some cool ways that the various fighting techniques that each of them have work together. And
that's the best part of the campaign. Unfortunately, it just comes way too late. You don't get to really assemble and fight with all the other Avengers until the final act, pretty much. Mm-hmm. Which I was a little disappointed in, to be honest. But when those parts get there, it's great. It's really amazing, kind of being like Thor or Iron Man and being far back from the fight and seeing the 3 other Avengers fighting and then flying in and just it's great. This game engenders those feelings. Only at the end of the game, though, I was kind of hoping I'd be able to get it through the whole thing.
I'm hoping they do something with as they go further and do more seasons, and I hope they do more cinematic content that because there's a lot of hints at what could be coming by the end of the game, and you'll see more in the final mission that you're I mean, if you know Marvel stuff, you're I see where you're going with this.
Gotcha.
This could be an expansion. This could be an expansion. This could be an expansion. And I hope they do that beyond, because some of it's just okay, so if you're doing this, I see that's probably going to be part of the solo campaign for this DLC character we know is coming because people have dug into the game and found it. But at the same time, I'm well, I hope at some point we also get a campaign expansion like what Destiny does as well, because I think they did, that is definitely the best thing in the game is that campaign. That campaign's an 8 out of 10 to me. The rest of the game kind of drags it down overall a little bit. But I think they did a really good job with the campaign. And I don't say that about Marvel stuff all that often. I do wish there was more team oriented, the teams together and doing stuff together stuff. And I hope they move into that moving forward because that actually worked. And I was skeptical about that, especially from, early on when we saw that first demo, where it was everybody's got their own section, but no one's really fighting together. Yeah. So I wonder if they just couldn't get that to gel properly. But, once you're playing some of these missions, even this one that we're seeing right now, it feels good. You're
it does.
Fighting stuff, and then suddenly the Hulk comes in and smashes the throne
awesome.
Right when you need him to. And I've done stuff where I was Black Widow.
Or they revive
for a while,
you even. If you die, they'll revive you.
They're pretty good at it. And I was, I'm Black Widow and I'm punching a guy and a guy's coming up behind me and I know I can't get to him before my combo's done, but then suddenly Thor's hammer comes out of nowhere and knocks him against the wall. And I'm that's great. It's really cool.
I just wish there was more of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Probably my biggest criticism of the game is the gear. I hate it so much. My voice
the gear doesn't need to be there.
It's insane. You pick up a new piece of armor that's, if it's not a level higher than what you currently have, you go to the sub level and it's one higher, and you can just spend all day constantly going into your inventory and equipping something more powerful. I just think in general with games as a service, and look, a lot of games as a service do this. Just in general, I prefer games like God of War, where you get an iconic either upgrade to an existing weapon or a brand new weapon. These little incremental stat increases that they keep getting. I hate it. And again, this isn't the only game guilty of it, but this is one of the worst cases of it. It is insane. My gear's always full. I'm always having to break stuff down. I forget, and stuff is getting sent back to the lockbox back on the shit. Which
is a pain to access in most cases.
It is,
except between mission screens, but sometimes you can't really stick at that. I think the gear will almost inevitably be streamlined going forward. It feels like something that's really going to need to be addressed. In the same way that Mass Effect 2 streamlined Mass Effect 1's inventory. Because pretty quickly even in the campaign, I hit the point where I just hold the L2 and I optimize the gear and call it a day because who gives a shit?
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You can't ever
especially as you're still leveling up. It makes a difference in some of the effects that can be triggered, like the perks on them.
Right. Yeah.
But you're never gonna, even if I like the perk on this one particular piece of armor, no matter, I can't upgrade it enough to keep up with the growing levels because the levels go higher and higher and higher. So I know that I'm basically
upgrade your gear. It's insane. There's a whole system built into the game to upgrade your gear with resources.
Well, that I assume is only
5 minutes later. I picked something up off the ground that was more powerful than the thing I just spent the resources.
Well, that's why I'm saying. So that's an end game thing. That's there so you can continue to upgrade stuff at basically max level and upgrade gear into something. But again, it's pointless to have it there as you're leveling. And it's just sort of a drain on resources and sort of confusing to someone who doesn't know that that's an end game thing for your average MMO situation. So there's got to be a better way to streamline that and make it feel less like a chore and less pointless, because it doesn't really do anything.
The vendors
it might be better just to give me perk stuff. Perk stuff might be a better thing to just earn in general.
The vendors also, I feel like, are just worthless in this game. Every time
I've never bought a thing from a vendor.
They're pointless. All the gear is underpowered compared to what you have, and they're expensive. I look at stuff that I actually have in my inventory, and they want so much resources for it. I'm like, I picked this up off the ground, and you want all that for it? Yeah, the gear, the vendors, all that stuff is just, I don't even know why it exists. I mean, I get it. End game, it has more importance, but to the vast majority of people who play this, there's no reason for the stuff to be in there. It's just bloat. It's like it's in there to say, yeah, we got that. This game could have been streamlined a lot. Now, I did end up liking, and I haven't seen the end yet, so I don't know what big twist or whatever may happen at the end. But I have liked the story for the most part. There was one part where Miss Marvel miraculously figures something out based upon some very cryptic statement that someone said. And I was like, oh, okay. You figured that out based upon that. But otherwise...
The funny thing on that is that I did figure that out because of how she said that.
What?
Yeah. I mean, look, I read a lot of comic books. That is the way she's, the phrasing of how she said that. I'm like, oh, I get what that means. Because
that leap of logic to me was like, boing.
I got what she was saying there.
I'd be interested.
My irritation with that plot point is how long it took them to figure it out. I was like, God, I'm sitting here waiting for this cutscene to finish. I'm like, yes, get to it. Come on. We've all read a comic book before. Get to it.
I think what I would just say in general about this game is if you're a big Marvel fan, you're going to like it a lot more than most people. You're going to overlook a lot of that stuff. I never would have ever deduced that that's what she was talking about from what she said. In a billion years, I never would have thought that. So, and I think most people are like me. They like Marvel. They like the movies. Maybe they read comics when they were younger.
I mean, there's a reason it's phrased the way it's phrased. I didn't find that to be particularly cryptic. In fact, I was waiting for the characters to catch up. Basically,
interesting. Okay.
Maybe I watch a lot of police procedurals. I don't know. It was just really obvious.
Interesting. This is kind of a love letter to hardcore Marvel fans, I think, because the whole plot is about a fangirl who becomes a part of the Avengers. It's like a hardcore Avengers fan's wet dream. And the way that they get her from being fangirl to actually a part of the team, it makes sense. They do a good job of easing her into missions where you can realistically say, okay, she can probably handle this. So, and building until she's fighting with the team at the end. I think they do a masterful job of handling all that stuff. And I liked the character. Miss Marvel was great. There are a lot of references and plot points that are very relevant to what's going on right now, because there's a major disease that's affecting everyone and they're trying to find a cure for the disease, a vaccine. And there are some very relevant things in the game that relate to today. And I think they were pretty smart about how they wrote around those things and did a good job. It's
interesting. Well, I mean, it's obviously that was planned years and years ago. It's interesting to see that this is part of this is sort of a remnant of when they started working on this. I'm sure that the Inhumans movie was still planned to happen.
Probably.
Because it's so focused on Inhumans. Because for a long time, the Inhumans were kind of what they were trying to angle as the replacement for mutants. Because they didn't want to use X-Men because Fox owned the license and it didn't do Marvel Studios any good. Mm-hmm. So Inhumans, they pushed as sort of the new mutant thing. And then they bought Fox, and then Disney bought Fox and they got the license back and they don't ever need to talk about the Inhumans again, basically. But you can see, if you're familiar with X-Men, the Inhumans in this game are treated very much like the X-Men, like mutants would be. It's sort of their prejudice and people think they're a disease or whatever. It's all kind of there, which I assumed is where they were going with the Terrigen thing when they first announced it. The other thing that I think calls it out as a hardcore Marvel fan thing is the fact that AIM is the bad guys, which is a pretty deep cut in terms of Marvel bad guys. They're kind of boring. And they're also yellow. I hate the color scheme on pretty much all the villains, and I know that's the color that AIM is. And I do give them credit for like I said, I was saying AIM starts pretty normal, but MODOK is showing up because MODOK is a big deal in the in the aim hierarchy, and I give them credit for finding a way to get MODOK to work, at least in concept. So it's
generally, do you like
stuff there.
The mad scientist antagonist in anything? Like
not usually.
Yeah, I don't usually either.
I find in terms of Avengers villains, I find Hydra more compelling because Hydra is basically Nazis. And I mean, Hydra is somewhat, but Hydra was also sort of a James Bond thing until the 80s or 90s. Mm-hmm. Hydra is very much based on Spectre, in the comics, the original comics. And then Cobra comes from, in G.I. Joe, comes from Hydra. That's why they're called Cobra, because they're just another reptile, Hydra. Yep. And so I think Hydra is a more interesting villain, but like you can't really fuck with Hydra because the movies have done them so integrally. And they've kind of automatically made them a Nazi equivalent. So like, I feel like they probably don't want that in this game right now.
Yeah.
So you do AIM and they're just sort of evil tech people and it's simple and no one cares. And they're all robots. So you don't get an M rating. So screw it.
Yep. Matt, I think my biggest issue with this game is after a while, it became monotonous. Because they did a really good job of making each hero work with the same control scheme, which is hard. But at the same time, I also felt like it held back some of the characters because they were trying to make that same scheme work with all of them.
I think you feel that in the campaign, but as I played post-game content and leveled them up more, like my Iron Man and doesn't play anything like my Ms. Marvel, who doesn't play anything like Black Widow. So I think they've differentiated them pretty well. The question becomes like, is there enough in there to make you want to keep playing to actually see that happen?
It's like, I don't want to fight any more robots, dude.
That I definitely sympathize with.
You're just fighting the same like 5 or 6 robot types over and over.
I was a little dismayed when I looked at the codex early on and realized how few enemies there are.
Yeah.
There's like 6 bosses.
Really, the bosses hardly ever happen. Like,
and they're almost all, again, robots. They're not Marvel supervillains. And I know they're saving a lot of those.
A human inside the robot. It's like, again, the mad scientist thing. A lot of times that's what ends up.
And I know they're saving a lot of that for the DLC. Like the solo heroes all get their own bosses, and that will probably be more. That'll probably be more like how the Hulk fights the Abomination near the beginning of the game. I imagine they'll have smart, recognizable Marvel supervillains who are associated with those characters as they come along. But in the campaign we got, like, I feel like you're fighting nondescript giant robot stuff way too much.
Yep. It's just the same thing over and over. And I got so tired of like coming over the horizon and just seeing another giant robot.
Yeah. I mean, by the end of the campaign, I was definitely invested in the characters and not what I was going to punch next.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely
definitely true.
And then to your point to my point earlier about how I felt like it held some of the characters back, I was kind of talking about like Thor and Iron Man. They're basically, at least when I play those two characters, I feel like I'm playing Anthem. But the controls in Anthem are better, I think. The way that they handled the flying, the landing, the shooting, the taking flight, that whole the feel of that and the process of that, to me, feels way better in Anthem. And I think the reason it's not quite as good here is because they were trying to shoehorn the way they were doing it into a control scheme that worked for all the characters.
I wouldn't really agree with that. I do think Anthem feels better to fly around and land in, but I think it's because Anthem has more room to work with. Also, Anthem is much more distance-based. There's not a lot of melee, whereas like the flying with Iron Man and Thor is very driven by air comboing. And that's very satisfying to me. Like I've gotten some pretty extensive air combos off with Iron Man. Like I really like how he plays.
Yeah, I've done it too.
I get what you're saying, but at the same time, like it definitely doesn't feel as fun to fly around and land like in Anthem.
Or is intuitive. It just doesn't feel as right the way
there are still things where like, because like you hold X to take off and then you tap X to fall. There's still moments where I hit X the wrong way and fall instead of like lower. So it's still not quite as intuitive.
Yep. But
I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but like,
it works fine. But I'm just saying, I feel like it could have been better if they had tailored each scheme to each character, but then you have the problems with the casuals who are like, oh, it's different now. I don't get it. So I understand why they did it that way. I just think they could have maybe done a little bit of a better job.
I think it's probably the best job anyone's ever done with something like that. In terms of having that wide cast that all has to play somewhat differently, but has to kind of have a unified control scheme. Because like the comparison would be something like Ultimate Alliance.
Yeah.
Where
this is
everyone's
way better
literally just the same character with different super moves,
And that's the thing. This is, I wouldn't say it's even top 3 superhero games ever made, but it is so much better than other games of its ilk. Like
I put in the top 10.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But like all those Ultimate Alliance games, they can't hold a candle to this game. It destroys them, hands down.
Other than the rosters, like obviously the rosters on the Ultimate Alliance games are bigger. But I'd say like give this thing
per character.
And I'd say give this thing a couple of years.
Right.
And we'll see where you are.
We'll see where it is. Absolutely. So now that I've basically finished the game, and I will say this, I've not played any more of the post-game content. Does it change much from what I played in the beta?
A little bit. I mean, there's a story to them. So like once the campaign finishes, you get a bunch of other like objectives that pop up, and several of them are narrative. Like their mission change with a narrative about like rebuilding S.H.I.E.L.D. or finding Fury's data things or whatever. And they're all sort of the same. Like go to the thing and perform a certain type of mission, which they tell you what kind of mission it is before you go in. It's like smash the things before you get defeated, or like guard the vault and activate the things and then defend it from things. They're all kind of the same mission type that you played in the beta. Those the non-story missions.
So there's basically a framework, but the actual moment-to-moment stuff.
And you're getting like cutscenes at the war table before you start them, and there's dialogue that kind of explains what's happening narratively. And then there's like and a couple things. There is a confusing thing, and it happens with the solo mission chains too, where they'll send you out on a mission, and then when you finish the mission, the next phase of that mission is to do a bunch of shit. Like not to do the next mission on the war table, but it's like, okay, you finished the first mission of like Black Widow's solo thing. Now the second phase of her solo thing is do this many combos and use the grappling hook to hit this many aerial enemies and like gain this much experience from doing this or like whatever.
A checklist of stuff.
Like a checklist of stupid human tricks, basically. And then once you do that, it unlocks the next actual mission you can choose on the war table. And I did not figure that out for a while. Because I was like, well, wait, where's the next mission? Because I'm just looking on the war table for the next Black Widow symbol, right? And like, I'm like, there's only one, but it's the mission I already did, so I guess I'll do it again. I did it again, and I was completing objectives, but I was completing objectives by doing fighting things a certain way. And finally, I figured out, okay, so sometimes it just tells you the next phase in this mission chain is to do a bunch of other stuff, and then come back to the mission chain when the next location opens up, which I thought was confusing, which might have just been me not paying attention to what it was telling me, but like, I don't look at the objective screen too much. I just sort of like assume I'm going to go punch stuff and that's it. So that was sort of a thing that took me a little while to figure out, because for a while I was just like, where is my next mission on this thing? But it's pretty good.
Now that I'm at the end of it, it does feel a little too short to me, because if what you're telling me is accurate, and I believe it is, the end game does not hold a lot of interest for me. And I played the game for a good bit one day, and then another day like solid, and I'm pretty much at the end of it. And knowing the post-game stuff, at least in my opinion, isn't great, it's hard for me to recommend this game for hardcore gamers. But to casual people, I would say buy it, put it on easy, and love it. If you're just a casual gamer who loves the Avengers, if you put this game on easy and just whack through it, you're going to have a blast. And I think maybe that audience is more important than us for a game like this. I hate to admit it, but it probably is. And I think for that audience,
the casual audience is definitely going to be what makes this game a hit or not.
And I think they're going to love it. I honestly think casual players will love this game. Yeah.
And I still enjoy playing. I've enjoyed picking a character. I pretty much picked Iron Man. I have ended up focusing on Black Widow more than I thought, because I like how she plays. But I did play a lot of Iron Man in the post game to kind of level him up and see where I got. I got to be like level 45 or so with him.
Wow! Holy crap!
But like, and he once you like upgrade the various things, kind of choose your enhancements on the other skill trees and stuff for his various abilities. Like I was pretty much able to tailor him to like what I liked best about him and kind of make him into what I wanted. as far as the combat system is allowing you that kind of lateral freedom. And I was pretty happy with him. Like, I enjoy playing as Iron Man. I do think the missions are samey to the point that I play like 2 or 3 and I'm kind of done for the day, which is really all you need to play to finish the daily objectives and call it a day.
I mean, that's a game as a service right there.
Exactly. So I can definitely see myself coming back to this pretty regularly. And certainly when they add new content or add new characters, I will definitely do some of that. So like that would be my recommendation to you, is like pick whatever character you think is the coolest and try to like kind of play the Shield post game mission chain and see honestly, how you feel at the end.
I think I enjoyed playing Miss Marvel more than any of the other.
Miss Marvel's a lot of fun. Like the only character in the game that I just don't quite click with is Hulk, which is funny because Hulk is the only one in that original demo I felt like he looked like he played like himself.
Right. Yeah.
Hulk was the only one that looked like they nailed to me.
Well, you hardly play him. It's funny. Like if you play the beta or the demo, like you would assume like Hulk's. You play him in the beginning, then you don't play him again for a long time.
Unless you do his solo stuff.
Right. But I'm just saying, if you're playing through the campaign, I really like how Miss Marvel plays. I love her animations. I love her attacks. I like getting her new attacks because I get to see some new animation and see how they've animated some of this crazy like morphing stuff that they're doing.
They realize her very well, especially for a character that like, you know, she's pretty new. That character's only been around since 2014 in the comics. And like, she's never really been realized in an art style that's this, for lack of a better term, realistic. You know, like this is not a cartoony looking game for the most part. And so I think they made her look really good and how she fights and how all that stuff, because that could look really stupid. And it kind of does, but that's sort of the charm of it.
Well, like the loading screen where she's standing there and she just has her fists up and her fists are like huge, gigantic. Yeah. It's like at first you see it and it doesn't click. And then you're like, oh my God, her hands are like the size of her torso.
And it's all just, like she calls her, her super move. And like she does that in the comics too. She calls it embiggening. Yeah. Which is, of course, a Simpsons reference.
Right.
And it's just, she's a very postmodern character because she's a fan of the things we're a fan of.
Yeah, she writes
and
fan
she behaves
fiction.
That. Yeah. And I think they brought that through too. Like clearly was made with love, even if they didn't accomplish everything they were after. But like, I appreciate what they're doing. I guess that would be the best way to say it.
Final determination. Do you think people should buy it, Matt?
I think people should try it. Like even if you don't want to pay full price for it, like this thing looks like it's selling okay. I feel like this thing's gonna be around a while. Yeah. Like any game as a service.
The game of the service.
Yeah.
It's not there. It's scrap.
I mean, hey, we saw what happened with Anthem. I mean, not that Anthem went away, but has Anthem done anything recently? No.
Yeah.
If they ever do that like big revamp they're claiming they're gonna do, like who knows?
Yeah.
But like in terms of this, like if you're skeptical about it, like I don't think this thing's going away anytime soon. And these games
it'll get cheaper and cheaper.
They'll get cheaper, and these kinds of games inevitably
go free to play eventually.
Go free to play, but also improve over time.
Yeah, for sure.
And get refined and streamlined, and just that no battle plan survives contact with the enemy. And as soon as you put this thing out in the world, you're going to get tons of feedback about how it could be better and how it could be streamlined and how it could be a more enjoyable experience. And I think that will happen. And maybe like, a year from now, maybe next summer, when the drought hits again, if you're on the fence about this thing, probably be cheaper by then. Maybe there'll be some free to play stuff. Maybe it'll be a free weekend or something. Give it a shot by then. Because like the moment to moment stuff like Destiny is a lot of fun.
It is. Yeah.
It really works. And like once you pick that character that you like the best, like you can really stick, in the post game, especially, you can really stick with them and sort of evolve them into how you want them to play. And it's a lot of fun. And if they ever get the fucking matchmaking to work properly, it'd be a lot of fun to play with other people. So
yeah, I've not been able to play the campaign with anyone. It will never match.
None of that has worked. I've gotten matchmaking to work like randomly on a couple of post game, like just war table missions, but it's unreliable. And
it's sometimes awful, I just give dude.
Up. It's really
we talked
weird.
About this last week. Remember? You were like, it's not working. And you're like, I'm not concerned. And I was like, I'm concerned. It launches in 2 days. And here we are a week later and it's still not working. And that's bad. I would not recommend someone buys this game. Now, if somebody tells me they love Marvel movies, they love the MCU. Yeah, again, put it on easy and you're going to love it. But as far as our audience, the core gamers, and a lot of it has to do with when it's coming out as well.
Right.
This game had come out in February or April or January, I would absolutely tell you to buy it without a doubt. But there are so many big products coming up in the next 60 days. You got 2 consoles coming. You got the biggest games of the year coming. Unless you're just hurting for something to play. And again, I've probably played 12 hours at this point, and I'm pretty much at the end. Unless you're just absolutely hurting for something to play, I have a really hard time recommending this game as a full price purchase.
I enjoy it. I don't regret having bought it, but I would kind of slot it in the keep an eye on it.
It did hook me. I mean, don't get me wrong. It hooked me. I started playing it again after having played the beta, and I didn't know if I was going to get into it, and I got into it right away and got hooked and played it for 2 days straight, basically, and now it's over. And that's pretty much what you're looking at. You're looking at about 12-ish hours of gameplay you can get through in a couple of days, and then the end game stuff, in my opinion, is really hard to get through right now. But as Matt said, it should improve over time. So maybe this is a game where you buy it full price, you play the campaign, you put it away for a little bit, play all the big stuff in Q4, wait for the dust to settle from that, and then you go back to the service stuff. And by then, hopefully, they've got it spruced up to a place where...
And they are, they've got a plan out for how many characters are coming out by the end of the year and moving forward into Q1. And I think I'm very curious to see what this looks like by the end of March.
Yep.
I feel like they might have we'll have a clearer picture by then of sort of how they intend to keep updating this and how it intends to sort of attempt to keep people's interest. So
yep.
I wouldn't super recommend full price purchase unless you're a super hardcore Marvel fan who isn't afraid.
And then it's a no-brainer. No-brainer. If you're a hardcore Marvel fan, go buy it.
But my main thing would be don't just dismiss it. Keep an eye on it, see what they do with it.
For sure. Oh, it's a good game. I mean, don't get me wrong. It has a lot of problems, and it feels like it may have worked better as just a traditional action-adventure game with just cooperative
I would definitely
play.
not have had a problem. Look, I would, as much like I said about Iron Man VR, just give me an Iron Man game.
Right.
Just give me an open-world, single-player Iron Man game and call it a frickin' day. I'll play some kind of Anthem crossed with Arkham City thing with Iron Man any day of the week. You don't need to I know this is the revenue model now, or at least it was when they started development on this thing. So
it may not be by the time they start the sequel. We'll see how it
you're right. You're right.
Okay, it's time to move on. We're going to talk next about something that just literally happened 3 hours ago. I've been scrambling all day to get this into the show on time, and that is the multiplayer reveal for Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. And what a reveal it was. 30 minutes of preview of Black Ops multiplayer. Well, I guess we should start calling it Cold War now, because now Black Ops is no longer the subtitle. It's actually a part of the primary title. Now it's called Call of Duty Black Ops, Cold War. So I'm guessing they're going to keep doing that going forward. I'll have to try to remember to reference it that way from here on out. But they revealed a ton of information. And then the crazy part about it is that they still didn't talk about zombies, which is Treyarch. Treyarch invented zombies. It's what it's known for. If you actually watch the live stream, the chat was literally just zombies the whole time. Just people, where's zombies? Where's zombies? They never showed it. Instead, they focused on the competitive multiplayer stuff. And if you're one of those people who says, you know what, year to year, Call of Duty multiplayer doesn't change all that much, I think this game will prove you right, to be perfectly honest with you. It does not. There's a lot to talk about, but to me, most of it doesn't change things drastically. And again, this is coming from someone who has played a lot of Call of Duty, so your mileage will vary with my opinion depending on how much you play. There were a couple tenets that they sort of followed when creating anything for this game. And the first one was deniable ops. They must have said that phrase 300 times in the 20-some minute presentation that they gave. It is set in the 80s, like the campaign, the multiplayer is. And that has an effect on what's in the multiplayer. So a lot of their modes are themed around CIA undercover stuff, thus the deniable ops. You can't admit that you're on the operation. And then the other thing that they kept mentioning over and over was plausible, meaning that they wanted people to feel like what they're doing in this Call of Duty is something that conceivably you could do in real life. And to that end, they have pretty much hacked out everything that made the gameplay interesting in prior Treyarch Call of Duty games. They have taken out wall running now after they took out all the other stuff before the last Black Ops game. And it is just another boots on the ground shooter. There is a slide, and they did change the locomotion of players a little bit. So when you first start sprinting, you have like this very quick burst, and then it kind of evens out over time, which makes sense. That's very realistic. But if you like the wall running, if you like the jetpacks of some prior Call of Duty games, all that stuff is gone. And I do know that most of you prefer the boots on the ground combat. I personally don't. I know most of you guys do, so I get it. Another big thing, naval combat. So I think you're starting to see some of the Warzone stuff trickle into Call of Duty proper. So one of the maps is called Armada, and there are like 5 huge battleships in the water, and then you can travel from one battleship to another using jet skis and boats. And that, to me, is pretty cool, because what it does is it forces you to use every element of Call of Duty. So in Call of Duty, some maps are called sniper maps. Some maps are called CQC maps, close quarters combat maps. That kind of a map works for everything, because you can have snipers on the ships sniping people traveling in boats or sniping people on the other ships. But once you get on the ship, then it's very tight. You have that close quarters combat that a lot of people sort of associate with Call of Duty. So I like those kind of concepts, but then you also have the traditional 3-lane maps, which they talked about over and over again, which are going to be a big part of Cold War as well. Vehicles in general are just a bigger part of the game in all the multiplayer modes, not just Warzone, which is going to be included in this. And they're going to start augmenting it with content from Cold War. They're going to start augmenting Warzone with it. But otherwise, there was 2 new modes that they talked about. One of them is called VIP Escort. And basically, you have one player who is the VIP, and all they have is a pistol and a smoke grenade. And then one team tries to escort him off the map while the other team tries to stop him. And it's round-based, and if you die, you have to wait till the round's over before you respawn. That seems to be, based on reports, the most popular new mode that they showed. People seem to like it a lot because it is something completely different. Escorting something off a map is something that's never really happened in a Call of Duty, which is weird, but it's absolutely true. I know, it's crazy.
It seems like such a basic thing.
I know. But I can also see where it would be fun, to be honest with you. Especially if you're the VIP and all you have is that pistol and a smoke grenade to try to get away. And then the only other new stuff that they really showed mode-wise was called Combined Arms. And it is basically replacing Ground War, which was the huge, like, 64-player war mode in prior Call of Duties. Now it's only 24 players, so you're losing 40 players. But the difference with this is that they're objective-based modes. So as you're playing, there are things that are happening on the map, almost like cinematic stuff and like story-based stuff that you need to attend to, and that all happens kind of organically while the match is happening. It sounded like most of the journalists did not get a chance to check out a lot of that, so there wasn't a lot of feedback about it, unfortunately. But again, at least they're trying something new. Back to the combat, like I said, boots on the ground. A lot of the weapons that you're used to in Call of Duty are missing because they were invented after the 80s, and this game is set in the 80s. So, like, I think the P90 is one of the guns that's missing. A lot of the more tech-heavy guns are not going to be included, and that carries over into the score streaks. And once again, they are score streaks, not kill streaks. They jump back and forth from one game to the next. Once again, they're score streaks. So a lot of the tech-heavy score streaks are gone, but you get some of the more 80s flavored stuff that was in prior Black Ops that I really liked. Like, I think Chopper Gunner is coming back, which is one of my favorites. What else? The ultimate abilities are gone. So those like supers that you could pull off in the last couple games, they've removed those. I mean, they've basically just chopped everything down to you've got a gun and you can run. And that's pretty much all you can do now in Call of Duty. And again, I know a lot of you guys like that. And I realize removing variables in a lot of ways makes it more balanced. Totally get all that stuff. I just enjoy the entertainment value of having some of the more in-depth traversal that we've got in prior games. Create a Class has gone to a slot-based system. It's no longer a pick 10. You can also now roll shotguns, what was it? Shotguns, rocket launchers, and maybe sniper rifles are now considered secondary weapons, which is something that you could not do before in Call of Duty. So now you can have like an assault rifle and then quickly pull up your shotgun if someone gets in close, which should change a lot of skirmishes. I like that idea a lot. What else? Field upgrades also is something new. And they are things that you can deploy. And if you die, when you come back, they're still there. So they don't disappear or they're not wiped out when you die. The same thing happens with score streaks. So score streaks, you know how when you play Call of Duty and you're like 1 kill away from getting a score streak, so you like go and camp or you hide because you don't want to die before you get that one more kill that you needed to get your streak. Well, they're basically just doing away with all that now. And they're encouraging you to want to stay engaged in the firefights at all times and not worry about, oh my gosh, I hit the hilt for my streak. I better use it now before I die and I lose it. Or I better make sure I'm 1 kill away from getting it. I better hide so I get that kill. So all that stuff is gone. Again, a really smart change that should have happened a long time ago. Gunsmith is being blown out. Another thing that should have been Call of Duty a long time ago. Gunsmith will now actually tell you how adding or removing attachments affect the performance of your gun in a percentage basis. It's no longer this, well, this is supposed to like hurt my aim steady, but I don't know how much. Now you know how much everything affects everything. And also, wild cards are coming back, but now you can have up to 4 of them, which means that you can have, for some guns, you can have up to 8 attachments on one gun. And what wildcards do is let you ignore the structure that they're trying to make you follow, which is like you can only have 1 secondary weapon. You can only have 1 primary weapon. Wildcards let you have as much of whatever they are assigned to as you want. And those are coming back, which should give you more flexibility in how you build your character or your loadout. I mentioned Warzone earlier. A lot of stuff is coming. First of all, Warzone is just carrying on. They're not launching a brand new Battle Royale game for Cold War. The same mode that has been there for Modern Warfare is going to continue for Cold War, except the Cold War stuff is going to start getting shoved into Warzone. So those choppers, guns, weapons, and things like that that were made before the 90s, those will be included now in Warzone. And they're going to have special events and separate battle passes. It's pretty insane what they're actually doing with Warzone without having to launch in a completely new game. Also, progression will continue. The progression that you had from Modern Warfare and Warzone carries over into Cold War. So everything that you've unlocked already playing Warzone is going to be there once Cold War launches. They're handling it, I think, about as smart as they can, to be honest with you. Cross-platform support, cross-generational support, PC versions being handled by Beanox, and it's going to have uncapped frame rates, variable frequency frame rates. Latency reduction is a big focus for them. They're trying to tackle all the stuff the PC players have complained about over the last couple years. Yeah, and then I think I mentioned Fire Team already. That's another 4-player mode. Yeah, they really piled it on today, man. Usually, like you get this stuff in batches. First, you get like, okay, what's the combat like? It's boots on the ground. This is the weapons, blah, blah, blah. Then you get the modes and the maps and like another presentation. They just dumped it all today. And I guess the big question is, does all this stuff make it better? And
is that Zelda?
Is it what?
Like in the B-roll, suddenly there was a shot of like a crying girl. It looked like Zelda from Breath of the Wild.
I don't know. Maybe a frame. You know what probably happened? I'll tell you what happened. A frame from the Hyrule trailer earlier probably got left in the timeline.
What that is.
Yeah, I guarantee that's what happened.
Yeah, there she is.
There it is.
New Call of Duty there.
That came around earlier, and I'm like, that's an interesting thing to put in Black Ops. Like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Again, I was in a huge rush today, and well, with this event didn't happen until 10 a.m. It didn't end until almost 11 a.m. and the show starts at 1 p.m. So you can figure out I was insane trying to get all this stuff done. And so there you go. A mistake in the B-roll. I'll try to fix that for the archive. But, and again,
I think it's funnier if it stays.
maybe I should just leave it. So anyway, the question I'm asking myself as a big Call of Duty player and a dedicated Call of Duty player is this more interesting than what came before? Is this more exciting than what came before? I feel like at this point, this franchise, every year, they're just rearranging chairs. Like, they're like, okay, well, last year we had kill streaks. Well, it looks
rearranging
like
deck chairs on the HMS Bismarck.
Yeah. And it's like, well, this year it looks like we're going to have to bring back the kill streaks or the score streaks and get rid of the kill streak. It's like Madden. It's like they keep announcing new features that are actually old features, but haven't been around for a couple years. And I feel like Call of Duty is starting to get the same way. Like, I don't know how many more times Mr. Vandahar can explain to me how he's tweaked the pick 10 system. Like, it's like, bro, you've been doing this for 12 years. Like, it doesn't really change fundamentally much. And I guess that's what I'm getting at is what I've seen of this so far. There are no big fundamentals. It's like you like the era of the 80s and you like Call of Duty. Well, then here you go. So am I more excited about this than I was for Modern Warfare? No, I'm really not. I am excited that I'm going to get to play a Treyarch campaign again. Multiplayer, not so much. Also, where the hell is Mark Lamia? Is he dead? He's the head of Treyarch, and he's just disappeared for the last, 2 years. Like, I don't know if he's like, I don't want to be on camera anymore. I'm going to step aside. I don't know if he left. I don't know. But it's weird that he no longer fronts anything for Treyarch. Instead, this presentation was by 15 different, I'm not even exaggerating, 15 different people they had on camera for this thing, which did help break it up a little bit. But overall, I would say, I guess it's what I expected. But I would also say that I have higher standards for Treyarch's Call of Duty games. And what I'm seeing so far of this isn't living up to that, which makes me a little nervous. But do you have any comments about Cold War, Matt, the multiplayer? I know you'll never play it, but
nope. I mean, I admit, when I did used to play, the old Modern Warfares and stuff, and sometimes when I watch footage like this and I see all those medals pop up when they get a kill, I'm just like, oh, I remember how good that felt.
Yeah.
But I know I'm not going to do it. It's not my thing. I no longer have the reflexes for it. My setup has enough lag introduced because of how it's wired into the house that
you have no chance.
I wouldn't have a shot.
You would have no chance. No chance whatsoever. How do you feel about them bringing in kind of the Battlefield type stuff where you have the ships and the boats and you're traveling from one point to another?
I mean, I like that. I've always liked that better than sort of the standard multiplayer deathmatch thing. That's why I always preferred Battlefield back in the day. So if they want to move in that direction, I mean, they've poked in that direction sometimes, and usually it didn't work out too well. So I wonder how this is going to be. Treyarch has attempted that kind of thing before, and I remember Call of Duty 3 tried to do that, and the tanks were just sort of god machines through the whole thing, and you couldn't do anything against them. I'm sure they've learned a lot since then, and Warzone seems to kind of have been a nice test bed for some of that. The naval battle thing seems cool to me, as much as I will never know how it plays. It's at least a little bit of a mix up, but it's just not my thing.
Yeah,
you want my attention, make an air war game. I'll play squadrons because it's dogfighting, but. You want much like Infinite Warfare. Infinite Warfare, I thought was cool in part because there was flying. That's my thing.
Well, I'll just say this. I'm not very excited for this year's Call of Duty, having seen now both the campaign and the multiplayer. Zombies still hanging out there, but I'm not a big zombies guy in the first place. I'm not very excited for this game. I struggle to find what its USP is. It's Call of Duty. That's it.
So what would you do if you were given say they came to you and you do Call of Duty? What would you do? Move it back into kind of the near future thing for the wall running and all that?
I would definitely make it near future. So the possibilities are more vast. It's like anything. You're locking yourself into the 80s. That's very hampering when you're trying to create anything by saying this can only be set in this 10 years. You only have so much to work with. So I would definitely make it more near future. I would definitely bring back the more in-depth traversal stuff. Again, I'm a huge Tribes guy. So they were heading in the right direction for me. I was like, oh my God, we're going to have a big budget Tribes game if I just wait 3 more years. And then nobody bought the game and then they just completely reverted from it. So you know what I want. Realistically, will that ever happen? No.
I mean, that's kind of how I felt about Infinite Warfare too, where it's just like, oh, if this becomes an ongoing thing every couple of years, I would definitely play this. And
if it keeps going in this direction, it's going in a direction I can get on board with. And
then
instead they've just gone the exact opposite way. They've just taken more and more away.
In my case, it makes more sense because Infinite Warfare did not sell very well. In your case, it makes me, I mean, I guess they're doing focus testing, but it does surprise me that they're kind of taking away the traversal stuff and sort of, I mean, I don't know. I guess
there's just a lot of whiny people who are like, it's unfair.
You have Titanfall for that if you want to do that. But
it's unfair because I suck at it. You know, that's what happens. You have a lot of people who are used to going into Call of Duty and racking up 30 kills and 2 losses. And they got Infinite Warfare, and suddenly they were 15-15, and they didn't freaking like it. And like it or not, those people, the streamers, as we saw today during their presentation, the influencers, they really listen to those freaking people, man. Like, you can see when they advise something, it actually ends up getting changed inside the game. So I think they're listening to those folks, and those folks just want boots on the ground. I can point and shoot faster than somebody else, so I should win type people. So it's just where we're at, and I don't see Call of Duty going back unless 8 years from now when they're really creatively bankrupt and they're like, what do we do? How do we come up with something new for this? I think at some point, Call of Duty is just going to become a platform because they're going to get sick of doing this. They won't get sick of making the money, but they're going to get sick of doing this, creating these games and trying to sell them as something new when they're not. So I don't know. I'm not very excited for it. You guys can find out for yourselves very soon. There is an open beta on PS4 happening October 8th. A week later, the open beta happens on Xbox and PC. So everyone's going to have a chance to play this before its release on November 13th. I hope they prove me wrong. I haven't played it. So, I'm just full disclosure. I have not had no hands-on with this multiplayer at all at this point. I'm just basing it on the information that Treyarch gave us and the limited amount of feedback that I got to see in the 15 minutes before the show started. So I'm going on what Treyarch's telling us at this point, and I'm not particularly excited with what I'm seeing, again, as someone who doesn't really like zombies. So the good news is we'll all get a chance to try it before we play it. I mean, that's just the good news about everything anymore, is that in general, you can pretty much try almost anything before you buy it now, which is amazing. Probably one of the best things about hard drives being added to consoles, in my opinion, is the availability of betas and demos and the access to those betas and demos for everyone instead of just people like Matt and I. It's a huge boon to the industry. I think that's why, honestly, that's why sales in the industry are so great, because people are able to sample stuff now before. It's not taken away from sales. I think it's helping the industry and helping sales, helping people discover games that they never would have tried before. So this is another case where you better give it a good whirl before you decide to plunk down your cash, because again, there are so many big games coming out right around Cold War. I mean, they might be scared. Let's be honest. For once, Activision might be a little nervous. You got Assassin's Creed and Cyberpunk launching within like 5 days of your product. I don't know. Maybe this is a year that the boots on the ground sales go down and they come back around to actually doing traversal again. I don't know. I'm just saying I'm not particularly impressed or surprised with anything that I learned about Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War today. All right. And with that, it's time to move on to something that both Matt and I have played, and that is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. I will repeat one more time on this show for those who maybe are just watching for the first time or don't know. I was a skater for like 12 years. Hardcore, skate every day, all day, every day for like 12 years. So I have a little bit of a different perspective on skateboarding games than most people. But let's be honest, most of you guys don't skate. So I think Matt's opinion on this game is probably going to be even more important than mine, to be perfectly honest with you. Matt, now that you've spent some time with the full thing and not just the demo, what do you think?
Well, to be clear, I didn't play the demo.
Okay.
So because of issues with Amalur, like we'll get into this in the next topic, because I ended up having to spend more time with Kingdoms of Amalur than I predicted. So I only played basically the warehouse. On this, I basically played what would have been the demo.
Right. What was the demo?
Yeah, to me, and mainly what I was after is I played the original Tony Hawk and Tony Hawk 2 to death, like just endlessly, and the most famous story I tell is about when Tony Hawk 1 came out for the PlayStation 1. I got it, and I went over to my friend Andrew's house, and we played all night, like literally all night. We were 23, and that's just what we did then.
That's what you do.
And he lived in it was like the back, like kind of mother-in-law house of this woman who was like renting it out to people, like in the back of her property. And the best way to get in was through the back door of the gate, and we'd park in this church parking lot behind that place. And the guy who lived next door to this woman was like the self-appointed guardian of the church parking lot, would threaten to tow people and threaten to like call cops on you. And like it was this constant war over like, because it's 2 a.m. like no one's going to church. Like no one, it's a Thursday. No one needs the church parking lot. Everyone's, so we went around on this all the time. And that night I got it, and we went and we played until the middle of the night, all night. Went out at like 6 a.m. to go home, and my car was gone, because dipshit had finally had them tow my car. And so the place that they towed it to, also he specifically had them tow it to the fucking ghetto. Like, you're trying to scare me, but like he didn't know. Like,
to my neighborhood.
So like the place didn't open till 8. So we just went back into his house and played Tony Hawk for another 2 hours. So because that is how powerful Tony Hawk is. And then I got my car back, and I was awake at that point because I was so mad at that dude. So we went back to his house and played more Tony Hawk. Like that is the level of Tony Hawk obsession that was in play. And I don't care about skateboarding. I have never been able to ride a skateboard. I am not part of skater culture. I don't give a shit about any of that. Tony Hawk is just a fun ass game.
And what about now?
And my big thing is I did play the HD remake or whatever from a couple of years ago. I was very disappointed.
So you tainted yourself with that first.
I was very disappointed by that. So my main thing was I need to pick this thing up, and does it feel right? And yes, it feels like after a few minutes, I got my hands back.
How long did it take you for the speed to come back?
Like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, it took my first run. I was like, my brain can't even work that fast.
Like, and the second run, I was like, oh, okay. And then like by the third or fourth run, I'm like, oh, now I remember how fast you have to hit the flip tricks to get to the next grind and do the special grind so you can speed up on the rail. And
here's a funny story. So I was playing it. I get up way earlier than my wife on the weekend. She sleeps in till like 11 or whatever. I get up at like 7 or 8. So I got up and I was like, okay, I need to get through like a bunch of Tony Hawk today. And I started playing at like 8:15 or whatever. At like 10:30 or 11, my wife comes walking out of the bedroom and she's like, what is going on out here? And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, all I've heard for the last 2 hours is click, 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 click. Like she could tell that I was playing something unlike anything I had played for a long time. And I was playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. It's been a long time since my thumbs have been sore playing a video game, I'll be honest. And this game made my thumbs sore.
There is an input speed requirement on this that just you're not used to anymore. But it feels like the old game.
It does. They nail it. Like there are some weird anomalies. So I've come across some things where the game thinks you're bailing a trick. In fact, there's some of it in the B-roll here. The game, and if you want to try to look for it, it's a shot where I'm inside a warehouse and I crash through a glass window and then start grinding. But you can see there, when I go to crash through the window, the game thinks I'm bailing, and it starts doing the rolling bail animation, and then I just pop up into the grind and just keep on grinding. So there are little quirks. For people who have played a ton of this and kind of dove into the code and the timing of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, there are some anomalies, but for the vast majority of people, 99% of people who are going to play this, it feels exactly like the classic games. Like they have managed to nail it. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So I basically played some of the warehouse stuff and once I felt kind of like, okay, this is what I was hoping it would be, I went back to dealing with Amalur. Okay. And we will tell that story in the next segment.
Okay.
I didn't get to play as much of this as I would have liked, because once I kind of clicked with it and was like, okay, yes, this is what I was expecting it to be. I would have liked to have spent more time with it, but basically all I was able to do was confirm that I had made a wise decision in purchasing it. Yeah, and I know I'm gonna like it. Once it felt good, I know I will continue playing this, because maybe I won't play it forever, but like, what I wanted was sort of that nostalgia controller trip of playing this thing that like my hands used to do automatically. It's sort of like playing old Street Fighter games.
Yeah, it takes a while. And the muscle memory did start coming back for me. It was pretty crazy. Like after like my third, fourth, fifth, like and then like it just clicked and it was there. It was really weird how your body can remember stuff from like 15 years ago and just immediately start doing it again.
I mean, I bought it for PlayStation 4 also specifically because like I need a PlayStation controller in my hand for this thing. So.
Yeah. Which makes sense. And this is also a game that I play with a D-pad. Like I don't play with the analog stick, and there aren't a lot of games that I play with the D-pad anymore. Again, I ended up with sore thumbs. I did end up playing a lot of it. And it was weird, I guess is the best way to put it, because one moment I'd be like, how do I not remember how to do this? Like, where is the secret tape on a certain stage or whatever? Like, I realized that I had learned all this stuff at some point in my life, and I have since forgotten a lot of it. But then there was other parts of playing it that were just a little bit too familiar for my taste. So the games on the disc or in the download, whatever, are discrete. So you choose whether you want to play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 or Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. However, if you're playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and you're making progress, it actually unlocks stuff still in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. So I hadn't even touched 2 yet, and I'm playing through 1, and the first level in 2 was opened up, even though I hadn't touched it yet. So the two games speak to each other, but they're not tied together. So it still has the vast majority of its missions are these silly find 5 or grind or wall ride 5 school bells, collect skate, collect all the videotapes, collect the secret tape. And after I started playing this game for a while, I started remembering what Matt and I had spoken about before about how this game is a 3D platformer and not really like a sports game. And 2, that the controls for this 3D platformer are abysmal. Because a lot of this game is you need to collect this thing. Trying to just collect one thing in this game can become hilarious at times, where you're just like skating in circles around the object, you skate away, you try to line up, and then you skate right towards it, and at the end it's infuriating at times because you do have to be precise in some moments.
And that's what we used to play that with, like we're like, okay, now we're going to get all the letters, and like you'd do it and you'd fail and you'd hand the controller to the next person and they'd try to get all the letters, and basically it would round robin until someone pulled it off. Right, because you have to figure out where they are, and then you have to figure out the line that lets you get them all before the timer runs out, and it's like that for all of the stuff pretty much. Those bells, I specifically remember like having to learn how to wall ride effectively. Yeah, and then the bells are really hard to find because they're not clearly marked. It ultimately ends up, the vast majority of the game is this kind of stuff. It's not necessarily getting better at the game. There was a lot more Banjo-Kazooie influence on this than you might think. Yeah, seriously. There really is. Even now, like the way they've combined the two games together, where you're getting a Jiggy in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 that's unlocking a new area in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. Finally, stop and swap with Tony Hawk. But I'll be honest, I would have preferred if they had rebuilt the games into one game. Oh, there, we just saw that. That was interesting. Yeah. I would prefer if they had this is online that we're seeing right now, by the way. This is the online modes. I would prefer if they had just taken all the stages from both games and just rebuilt them into one product. That would be called Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2. Like instead, they did on the original Xbox. Yeah. And instead, it is two separate games that kind of speak to each other. Now, that's too huge. Not huge. I finished the first Tony Hawk's Pro Skater this time around in like 3 hours, I think. This looks a little wacky, what I'm seeing here. Well, this is a multiplayer mode, so I guess I'll talk about it now since we're showing it. Multiplayer modes are basically, they throw you into a stage with a lot of people. It's not like 1 or 2. There's like a dozen people skating each one. And then the objectives are either complete the biggest combo before the timer expires, get the biggest combo score, or just get like the highest overall score. And y'all just skate in the same area until the timer runs out, and then the winner is crowned at the end. The thing I liked about it is that there are new areas to skate for the multiplayer that aren't a part of sort of the campaign. And I liked kind of the freeform part of it. Like, it wasn't like, I do a trick, now you try to top it, or I do this trick, now you need to duplicate it, like playing skate and things like that. It's just go out, shred as hard as you can, and let the chips fall where they may. And I kind of liked that. because that was the main thing I think we played. Obviously there's no online, but we played horse. Yeah, where you've been basically besting each other's trick on the same line or whatever.
Yeah, this to me is better. It just lets people go in and skate an area, show what they've got, and then see where their score lines up at the end. And it's pretty awesome. Like I found myself actually sometimes just following some players around. Like after you play around and you see, oh my God,
there it was. Yeah. That was what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like if you play around and you see somebody scored a 600,000 point combo. Well, you look at that guy's name, and next time I followed him around to watch him play, because he was that good. So I kind of like how the multiplayer works. The content, even though it is 2 games jammed together, you can easily get through both games in a day. Like most of the objectives, like we were talking about earlier, it's like collect skate. It doesn't take skill to do it. It's more about finding where the objects are in the level and then plotting a line that will let you collect them all before you run out of time. That was annoying to me, the time limit. It started to wear on me after a while. Like you can see why skateboarding games moved on from this. But then you can also see why they've come back, because they became so bloated with, again, kind of like Avengers, with stuff that you just didn't need and didn't make the game better. I'm definitely not in the camp of they should go back to this style of game for a new Tony Hawk game. I got my nostalgia kick out of this, and I'm good. But at the same time, if they're going to continue down the path the old Tony Hawk games were, you're just kind of repeating the whole pattern all over again. So I don't know what the smart move is to go forward for skateboarding games. It's not my job to know that. But I do know, as a former skater and still kind of a skater, I would say, this is not the way forward. It was nice for one day to kind of go back in time. And it was like a nostalgia trip. Like Matt was saying, like, this franchise brings so many memories back. Like I remember going down to my neighbor's apartment downstairs with it, and playing and showing it to him for the first time. And he was also a skater, and us just freaking out for like 3 days straight about how awesome it was. All that stuff started coming back while I was playing it. And in that way, at least to me, it would have almost been worth the money spent on buying the game at full price, to be honest with you. Because what are you going to get in life that's going to make you feel like that? Not a lot. If you're just like someone who's, say you're like 20 or whatever, and you were like 6 when Tony Hawk came out the first time, this, I think, might be a better purchase for you. Because you haven't already, and I mean, let's be honest, I have squeezed these games dry. Like,
I should note that if you're 20, you were not alive when this came out.
Right. Yeah. So I could look, if you're around that age and you played like the Tony Hawk games when they became bloated and were turned off the skateboarding games, then I do think you should give this game a go. I think you will be pleasantly surprised by how fun a game this old can still be. But if you're like me and you've been a part of the run, you were there when it first launched, you played Town and Country on the NES, and you've been playing all these crappy skateboarding games all these years.
720.
Yeah, and then you got to Tony Hawk, and that was a revelation, and then you burned out on it. If you're like me, it's hard to go back and play a game like this, I think. But again, there's a lot of people out there. But
at the same time, it does give you some like nice, if you want to remember 1999 for a minute or two.
Way more vividly than you think that you can still remember it, I would add. Yeah. It will do it. It is literally like a little time machine that will take you back and will remind you of who you were friends with when the game came out, what you were doing when the game came out, what you were into, what kind of music you liked. And again, for some of that, that's value. That's worth some money. I mean, it really is. So
even if it's just to say like, hey, I remember all this and I am not that person anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how far I've come.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, it is kind of one of those like touchstone things that it's like it marks a moment in time in your life. And this game will take you right back to it. The other thing I would say is the improved graphics. I forgot about them after like an hour. Like it really didn't matter because they're not that great in the first place. Like, because they are built on the core of the PS1 game. Like there's just a lot of
they're still just sort of representative. It's almost like what Miyamoto used to say about like it could be rectangles on squares and it would still be fun to play.
That's how they design Mario games.
Yeah.
Like they control a cube first before they even put the character model in the game. And they're like, if the cube isn't fun, Mario's not going to be fun. And this game definitely has kind of that aesthetic to it. But it's low on the frills and things like that. So I think most people know what they're getting at this point. As you're seeing right now in the B-roll, there are just tons of skaters, tons of boards, tons of wheels. There's so much stuff to unlock that, again, I don't care about. Like I found my Santa Cruz skateboard and I was good. Like I didn't need to change it after that.
Yeah, I gotta get my Bones Brigade skull.
Yeah, I got my Bones Brigade shirt. All right. And I was like, I don't need all this. And there's just pages and pages and pages of it. So if you want to keep unlocking stuff, it doesn't really affect like how the game controls or works. You're always making money and you're earning experience points, and you can use those to upgrade your skater. You can start with Tony Hawk, who's pretty beefy from the beginning, and kind of start shaping him, or you can start with a character that you create, who I would say the stats are much lower, and you have to work a lot harder to build them up. Again, it's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. It's just like it always was. And it is true to the roots of the franchise. And if that's what you're looking for, buy it without hesitation. Absolutely.
And remember, those who search for Animal Chin have already found him.
That's true. I'm surprised you know that line, Matt. Did you watch Animal Chin?
Yeah, I've seen all the Bones Brigade movies.
Oh, you have? Awesome. Yeah. It's interesting that you call them movies. We call them skate videos.
That's what I mean, Bones Brigade
Animal
3,
Chin was like a
The
movie.
Search for Animal Chin, is pretty much a feature. I mean, it's as much a feature, like a feature film as like a porn with a story.
Yeah,
right?
It's about the production values. Yeah.
But at the end of it, I liked several of the characters. I mean, they were just skaters doing their thing, but like it worked. You know, like I got
that was
like,
a revelation. Dude,
I got like some kind of taste. I saw that when I was 10, 1986, and I got some kind of taste of like, oh, that's why people are into that subculture or whatever. And it made sense to me. And I'm like,
Animal
that's not
Chin
me, but
like
I got it.
Earth-shattering. Like there had never been anything like skate videos were just people skating before that. Yeah. There had never been even an attempt at a plot, and they haven't really done one since, to be honest. But it was a moment in time that I'll always remember. So anyway, there you go. That's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2. I do not recommend it for people like me, unless you really place a lot of value in nostalgia. But if you're a younger player, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at how fun a game this old can still be. All right, it's time to move on to the last topic. Well, penultimate topic anyway. Matt jumped on a grenade this week and decided to play Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning, which is a remaster of Kurt Schilling's action RPG from 38 Studios that ended up bankrupting his studio and Rhode Island. So it's shocking to me that this game has been remade. It actually was a pretty solid game when it came out way back when. Matt, now that you've got a chance to play the remaster, how do you feel about it?
So I'm kind of mixed on Amalur in general, because like I always thought it was like a pleasant enough little action RPG, but it gets old real fast.
Wait, before we move on, someone's asking, is Spider-Man a hidden character? He's not hidden. He's actually a part of the roster. Like, I had to get that in there before we move on. Sorry.
Fitting. All it's missing now is Solid Snake.
Yep.
But it's always been kind of like a pleasant enough game, but I never finished it because I got bored too fast. You know, and I'm not saying I didn't play it. I played like 60 hours, and I was still in like the third area, and I was so overpowered that it was just like wading through like enemies that couldn't hurt me basically. And I got bored, and I didn't care about the story or anything, and that was it. But I do enjoy the combat in the game. The combat was made by a couple of Tekken veterans that they basically headhunted to make this thing, and that is why it's so
bring in fighting game guys for an action RPG.
It makes a lot of sense. It's just not something that's done much, and it works. Like the combat's good. It just isn't enough to drag you through a 70-hour game, right?
Is that how long this game is ultimately?
Actually, it's more than that. It's probably closer to 100 if you do everything.
Wow.
It's really long, and there's no justification for why it goes. And it's just like someone described it in one of the reviews this week as it's like playing an MMO with all the multiplayer stuff stripped out of it and a good action combat system shoved in. And that's very accurate. You're running through these big open areas that are big and open for no reason other than the fact that they'd probably be big and open in that scenario. But
or
like,
if they
there's no content. There's nothing in it. Yeah, there's nothing. Like, you get to little like civilization hubs. You talk to everybody with an exclamation mark over their head. They give you a bunch of stupid quests to go do that you don't care about. You follow it to the objective marker, kill the thing, grab the thing, do the thing, go back to the thing, get the thing, level up. You're done. Like, and just do that 1,000 times, like just over and over. Look, I played this game for almost 80 hours back when it came out, and I couldn't tell you what it was about.
Can
like,
you now?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, I remember the backstory.
What is it about?
So. At the very beginning, you are a dead person on a cart in a like a morgue thing, and these gnomes basically dump you in like a incinerator thing, and you fall down into a pile of bodies, and you wake up, and you have to kind of fight your way out of the body garbage heap, I guess. And then you run into the people that are running this thing, and they're like, oh my God, you're not dead. What the hell? And it turns out that where you are is in this thing called the Well of Souls, which is this thing that was designed by this brilliant gnome scientist to resurrect people. And what's basically going on is there's a war between the humans and the elves, who are called the Fae in this. There's a faction of elves who have gone basically like belligerent and are fighting a huge war. And the trick here is that in this world, elves are essentially immortal. You can kill them, but they will just resurrect somewhere else. And
do they have to go to the Well of Souls for that?
No, the Well of Souls is being built as a way to resurrect mortals.
Okay.
So to kind of even the score, right?
Right.
But you're the only one it's ever worked on. So the guy helps you escape, and then you run into this guy who's what's called a fate weaver, which is someone who can see the threads of fate. And he looks at you and realizes that you are not part of fate, essentially. Everything in this world is bound to fate, and to the point that the elves, who are the Fae, who are basically immortal and they live forever, but they repeat the same stories over and over again. Like, the fairy tales of this world continually come true because the people who were part of those fairy tales are still alive. Okay. Because they're immortal. It would be like if King Arthur was still around and he kept forming the Knights of the Round Table, right? And people kept going off on quests for things. But you are not bound to that. Like, your character is the only person in the entire world who can defy fate and change fate, which makes you very, very unique and very, very dangerous. And so your ultimate goal is effectively to kind of burn through reality and sort of like change the world in a way that no one thought the world could be changed. I don't know how that turns out because I've never gotten there, but that is the premise. And the way that works out in terms of like, that's kind of also the excuse for how the character classes work and how the big super move works. So you can use these fate cards, or basically your templates. So you've got three skill trees, essentially. There's might, finesse, and sorcery. So fighter, thief, and rogue, whatever you want to call it, and wizard. And you can put points as you level up into any of them, as much as you want, whatever you want. And as you put points into each tree, you unlock new skills as as usual. You get 6 points or whatever, 5 points into might, and now you can get the next level of skills. Cool. Put 34 points into might, and you get the next level of skills, that kind of thing. And as you put more points into those trees, you can then access what are called fate cards, which are essentially classes, essentially class archetypes. And so you've got pure might, pure finesse. You have to get to that
point before you can choose class, basically.
No, the classes you can always choose between. Okay. Basically, you have vendors you can go to. You can always change your class, and then every time you level up, you can shift your fate card. So you have tons and tons of opportunities to do that. At the beginning, you just have basically might, finesse, and sorcery. So just straight classes there. As you level up each one, like say you get to might level, I don't remember what the number is, but it's like 10 or 11 or whatever, that many points in might. Now you can be a brawler, and now you can be a fighter. So that goes up and up. Almost. And each card gives, so basically like if you pick the melee one, basically gives you like a bonus to damage and a bonus to blocking. Right? If you pick the sorcery one, you have like a 25% damage to elemental damage, because most sorcery stuff is elemental based, and a faster mana regeneration, that kind of thing. And then if you put points into multiple trees, you can access multi-classes. So like a half might, half sorcery, and be like a battle mage, or half sorcerer, half finesse. You can do like a sneaky wizard with a backstabby thing, that kind of thing. So you have a lot of freedom.
Very MMO-like.
Yes.
The way the classes are handled, which makes sense because Kurt Schilling was a huge World of Warcraft player.
Yes. And in fact, this was based on the world that his MMO was set in. So like this was sort of a side project for the world of Amalur,
he really
which was
wanted
supposed to be the MMO. Yeah, the MMO took place in the same world, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And so you got an action RPG sort of set in this world that was more conceived as an MMO thing, and you can kind of see that. I'm not saying they reused the areas or anything, but it does feel like an MMO that was redesigned into a single player thing to some degree, at least in concept. Okay. The trick being that, of course, no MMO has ever had kind of action-based combat this good. So that's sort of the real draw. The problem with it back in the day was that you had 7 or 8 major areas of the world that each were divided up into 6 to 10 smaller areas. And by the time you got to area 3, you were so overpowered that nothing could basically stand in your way. You were killing things in 2-3 hits, no matter what.
So it was horribly balanced, or was.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And you were picking up stuff that just everything you picked up was trash. Like the only way to get any new equipment by 10, 15 hours in the game was to craft it yourself. Again, very MMO-ish.
Yeah,
think about it.
For sure.
So one of the things they're doing with this remaster is they rebalanced a bunch of stuff. The trick with the remaster is that it's a remaster, and visually it's a remaster in the most basic sense. Like they made the lighting a little better, like the self-shadowing and contrast is a little better, but otherwise it pretty much looks the same.
It still looks blurry.
It's not very blurry in person. I've been playing. I'll get to why I played it on 2 different platforms in a second, but it didn't look that bad.
Okay.
It doesn't look that much better, but it looks fine.
Okay.
And the art style from the old day, the art style is like a little cartoony and kind of like World of Warcrafty, like you said, and it holds up for the most part. Like I don't think it looks bad to look at.
It's stylized. That always holds up.
Yeah,
when you try to make something look as realistic as possible, that's when they don't.
So that's all there. So, but then they added a bunch of stuff. So there is the remaster adds a very hard mode. Previously, there was only easy, normal, and hard, and even hard was ridiculously easy. So they added a very hard mode. They've rebalanced all the loot tables, so you get loot that levels up to your level more frequently, and even stuff that is beyond your level, so you have to work towards it. Like you get way better stuff more regularly, basically. Mm-hmm. And that kind of thing. They've rebalanced all the experience and how you level up and how the enemies are leveled up and the zone levels and everything like that, so it doesn't become a cakewalk, early in the game, and all that. So those are all really cool. That's all really good stuff. The problem is that I bought it on the Xbox. And one of the things the Xbox had is we pre-ordered the Fate Edition, which added is kind of a season pass thing, because they are doing a new expansion.
Are you
early
freaking
next
kidding
year.
me?
This THQ Nordic doesn't give a fuck. Like this is the same company that bought Titan Quest and then put 2 new expansions out for it.
I know, it's crazy.
What?
Where is the money coming from?
A crazy rich guy in Sweden,
I mean,
what I understand.
Dang.
So I don't know. Apparently he just loves this stuff. So here we are.
Yeah.
So that's like what, no one ever thought this IP would ever be resurrected, but he got it.
Let alone another expense.
Got it for like $5 and a couple of popsicle sticks. So why the fuck not? Right.
Yeah.
So here's the problems though. Cause if you ordered that edition, you got like a day early access. You basically got day 0 access, right? You got a day early, Monday. So the problem is there's a day 1 patch for the Xbox, for all of them, but also for the Xbox, and all the remaster content is in it. So the graphics are fit. The up-res graphic and the lighting changes are here, right?
Are you kidding me?
All the very hard mode, the changed loot tables, the changed experience stuff, all that's in the day 1 patch. But wait, my story gets better. The day 1 patch was delayed on Xbox because apparently they claim because of Microsoft's certification process being delayed over Labor Day weekend. It went live on PS4.
Or you could have just put it through certification the week before.
They put it up. They said they put it up 2 weeks early. Microsoft is slow on this stuff.
Yeah,
I'm actually willing to take their word.
Yeah, I've heard. It's not the first time I've heard it.
Because let's not forget, they put the patches up for certification from Sony at the same time, and Sony, the PS4 patch went live day 1, no problem.
Yeah,
and the patch went live on Steam, no problem, because Steam doesn't care.
I mean, I've heard this from many people before. Right.
So the day 1 patch has to go up for that. Okay, fine. Everyone's like, wait, it goes up at like noon Eastern. Everyone's waiting. Nothing. Finally, the developer pops up in the Discord and goes, yeah, it's going to be tomorrow.
Oh,
day one patch is going to be on day 2.
Oh my gosh.
Also, it changes things so much. We don't know what kind of bugs you might run into later, so you should start your saves over.
So he's basically saying, like, just start the game over.
So basically, you paid extra to play it early, but everything you played early doesn't count. Also, achievements don't unlock it yet.
What?
So
they're retroactively.
And they won't. They probably won't unlock.
Yeah, they probably won't.
Well, no, because I'm not done yet. This morning I got up. So that last night I'm like, okay, so I haven't played the remaster content of this, right? So I should do that before I talk about it on the show. So I went on Steam and I got the remaster version on Steam for $17 or something because I already had the old one, so I got a discount on it. So I'm like, I'm gonna play this, and so play a new save from this, and so I know what I'm doing. So I played some of that for a few hours. That's why I didn't play so much Tony Hawk, because I had to play Kingdoms of Amalur twice. This is what I do for this fucking show. And like,
thanks, Matt.
And so it works out a lot better. There is a sprint bug in my Xbox version where you hold the button to sprint and you push forward and they run, right? If I angle even the slightest bit to the left, the character stops sprinting and goes back to jogging. Doesn't do it if I do it to the right. Doesn't do it if I do it full left or right. But only if I angle it to the left, it stops sprinting.
So what do? Do you aim a little left when you start running?
I switched it. So what I did is I switched it to tap to run, so I don't have to hold the button.
Right.
And then I use the right stick to angle the camera so I never turn left. I just angle the camera because it's all relevant to the camera. Oh, there's a ton of new.
That's pretty also smart.
The remaster adds a bunch of camera options because there were no camera options before, and a bunch of HUD scaling. That's also not. That's in the day one patch. You don't get that otherwise. So the camera, you can mess with the camera way more. So on the PC version, I got to the new loot tables work pretty well so far. Like I am still getting useful items constantly. Everyone is not a pushover yet. I'm not far enough in that would be a problem yet. But like I'm on hard mode, and I'm clearly seeing that the challenge is more there than it was, and because I've started that game a few times in the past, so it's still there. Like the remaster stuff is in play, and it's noticeably different to me as someone who had just played 6 hours of the non-updated version by accident on Xbox 2 days ago. So so that's there. It works pretty well. And then my plan was this morning I'll get up and put the day one patch on the Xbox version, play a little bit of that, and see how that compares to the patched version of the PC, and that's a good comparison. And I wake up and I load up the Xbox and there's no update for it. So I look it up and now there is no estimated date for the day one patch on Xbox. They don't know. They just don't know.
So translation, stay away from the Xbox version.
Stay away from the Xbox version. It seems to be it's too bad because the one on if you have the Xbox One X, it runs at 4K 60.
Right.
Like it's a solid, and it does run pretty well. Like I've been playing, what I played before the patch run pretty well. But obviously the PC version does that too, so who gives a shit?
The bigger question though is, should people stay away from this game, period, in 2020? I mean, are you enjoying playing it?
I enjoy playing this game until I don't. Is kind of the way I'd say it. Like it's fun to play the combat until I realize you're just doing the same thing over and over again. The dungeons have like 5 different ideas to them, and they don't really do anything different the whole game. And you're going to do like 100 of them, so you better be ready.
Yeah.
My thing, and my thing on it is basically this game costs too much. Like this thing's $40.
Oh,
there's no way it's
that's
worth
way too
$40.
Much. Yeah.
I mean, I guess in terms of time played, but in terms of like
entertainment,
yeah, exactly.
It's like
this is
you can do anything to waste time. Like
this is a rock solid $20 purchase.
Yeah,
but 40, nuh-uh.
Yeah,
and if you are an Xbox person and you order this thing and you could be asking for your money back. Like
they might give it to you.
Probably would.
I mean, this is a monumental screw up. I've never heard anything this bad on Xbox Live.
It is nasty, and I pretty much do believe them that like the Microsoft's certification process is like the key problem here. But like,
how could they not have a date even then? Though
I don't know. And it's not like they didn't know. I mean, they got it out for the other 2 platforms. So what's the deal?
Something. But regardless, you're saying don't buy it anyway because it's $40 frickin'.
No, I mean, I would say if you have the old one on PC and you liked it, they gave you like a 60% discount on the new one, and that's about the right price.
Yeah.
So If you're into it, but also like you said about Avengers, we're about to roll into a really packed release schedule. Do you need an 80-hour mid-range RPG right now? Not really.
Not when you're going to buy another one in like a month when Assassin's Creed comes out. Yeah.
So like, So it's something that's sort of like, and there are people that just love this game. Like I've seen, this game has some really big fans. I have seen no less than 6 people on Twitter and Reddit call this game, I am not kidding, a masterpiece. Which, like there's people that say that about there's people that say that about Batman versus Superman too. It takes all kinds, right? To each their own. Yeah. They're wrong, but it is kind of fun. And like the original game I did dip back into periodically over the subsequent couple of years, so it's not like I didn't get my money's worth out of it back then. Yeah. It does look better. It does play, but also on the PC, that sprint thing is not a problem. It works just fine. I've tried multiple controllers on my Xbox One, by the way. It is not the controller. It is the game.
It's the game.
And it is better so far playing it because everything feels like it expects you to be the level you are. Effectively,
that makes a big difference.
Yeah. Like, so I feel like that was the thing, is like the problem when I would play the game when I got into like the 20 level range, like I would literally fall asleep in dungeons playing it because it was so non-challenging, even on hard. Yeah. So I think they did address that, and so far it feels like they have kind of fixed it, and I need to stay on my toes during combat a little more. So I dig that. I'm into it.
Yeah, not $40 worth.
Not $40, dig it, but like for the $17 I paid for the PC version, pretty cool.
Yeah.
And there isn't. Yes, the other thing is like there isn't really anything like it. Like there are other action RPGs, there are other open world action RPG things that like have better stories and better engagement and more interesting sort of lore that the backstory in this game is actually pretty interesting. That whole fate thing and the way like fairy tales play out. That's one of the things that comes into play in some of the quests is like if you act out the events of a fairy tale in this world, the world will notice and make that fairy tale happen around you. So like there's like early on there's a quest where like this wandering kind of grifter wants to reenact a fairy tale that involves a treasure, because if you reenact it and the fairy tale kicks in, the treasure will exist and you have a shot at getting it. Which is like, that's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, for sure.
The quest is not a very cool idea. It's just sort of hitting things until you collect. You literally collect the heads of 4 things and go back and go kill a dungeon thing. It's not as interesting in execution as it is in concept, but that's pretty cool. But there's nothing really in the action RPG world that has combat like this. Like you've got the sword stuff feels really good. It has the chakrams, which is like the ring blade things, and you throw them out like boomerangs, and like you can do some really cool combos with a lot of the stuff in this. And as a fighting game person, that's appealing to me. It just ran out of steam about 3 lands into 7, and this and then this does come with all the DLC, so there's 2 more continents basically to go to and do a quest there, which I have never actually personally seen because I never got that far in the original game, so maybe I'll get there this time. I don't know.
Are you gonna keep playing it?
I am gonna keep playing it until something more interesting comes out, which will probably be in like a week or 2.
Yeah, I'm surprised you would prefer to play Tony Hawk over this.
I'll be honest, like I kind of identify pretty strongly with your sort of nostalgia trip thing. That only takes me so far. And this is kind of a little bit of that too, but like the moment to moment hack and slash is more my thing.
Okay.
At least right now, give me a day and maybe I'll be more into Tony. I don't know. I don't know what happens from time to time. And
well, the good news is we'll talk to you next Wednesday and we'll find out.
The world doesn't mean anything anymore. December is tomorrow and forever. And fear is the mind killer. So don't pay $40 for this game, but maybe 20 is pretty good.
Okay. Tiny2K, thank you for handing out all these subs to our live audience. Again, just another reason to show up to watch the show live on Twitch every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And with that, it's time to get into our last topic of episode 228. It has been a gigantic week for Nintendo, and we're going to talk about everything that has gone down to finish off the show. I hope we can get through it all before we run out of time here, because there is a lot, and I have a feeling a good bit of it is going to engender a lot of discussion between Matt and I. So Nintendo finally celebrated the 35th anniversary of Super Mario Brothers this week. To me, it came out of nowhere. Obviously,
apparently a few months later than they planned.
Yeah.
Judging by that website thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, to me, it came out of nowhere. I don't know if anyone had an idea that this was happening when it did.
I didn't know it happened until it was over.
I didn't either.
I saw people talking about, what was it? People were talking about something, Hyrule Warriors. And I was like, what? Like, and like, it just, that was a separate tweet, wasn't it? That was just like popped up in a tweet. Nintendo's just dropping stuff with no...
Hyrule Warriors was announced all on its own.
Yeah, they did that with Paper Mario too. It's like, oh, here it is. Here's a tweet about this thing you've never heard of, and it's coming out in like a month and a half.
Yeah,
like,
we'll get to that. First, we're going to talk about the 35th anniversary celebration that Nintendo had, which ended up just being basically a Nintendo Direct.
I didn't know that happened either until it was already over.
Depending on your disposition or what you really like or don't like, I'm going to try to talk about these, I think, in order of interest, although some of you may think I'm crazy. Probably because the first one I'm going to talk about is Mario Kart Live Home Circuit. Look, I, like all of you, I have been ready for Mario Kart 9 for, it feels like 3 years now. And they just keep re-releasing Mario Kart 8, and I'm sick of it, and I don't play it anymore, and I want a new Mario Kart. And I hear you when you're like, instead we get this, but this is pretty freaking cool. Like, I understand why some people are hating on it, because they think, oh, this is going to keep me from getting a real Mario Kart. One, I don't believe that at all. I don't think the team working on this has anything to do with Mario Kart 9. And second of all, maybe you should just give this a chance, because I think it's really, really freaking cool. Essentially, it is an augmented reality Mario Kart game where you buy the actual karts that then race around on the floor or on the ground. I don't know how durable these things will be to run them outside if they get dirt in the gears and stuff like that. And basically, you set up a track. Now, one thing I would say about this that I think maybe people don't get when watching the trailer is that you're basically playing those courses mentally. So you don't see the course on the ground. You have gates that you have to go through, but you don't actually see the course that is laid out on the ground of your house. It's basically in your imagination because you're just playing on the screen anyway. So they project the track onto the screen that you're playing on the Switch, but it's not on the floor. So they aren't giving you like these white track outlines that you lay down on the floor to denote the track layout. It's basically all in your head, and the karts race around on the ground. Now, I realize this isn't practical for a lot of people. I live in an apartment. We're lucky, I think, that our living room is big enough that I could probably make it work. But for a lot of people, this is not going to work at all. They live in an apartment, it's not going to work. Or if you just live in a house where you have mom and dad and 3 kids, chances are, unless you're really rich and live in a mansion, you're not going to have room for this either.
Or if you just have carpet.
Right. So I think they're going to work on carpet. I do believe.
Somewhat. It's not as well, I think. I mean,
they might actually handle better on carpet.
They don't. This is not new tech at all. This is the AR remote controlled cars. Like my nephew and my brother-in-law have a bunch of those, and this is not some kind of weird new innovation. Like this is very
tech
very
that they just licensed and slapped Mario Kart on.
I don't think so. I mean, they probably developed it themselves. Like all you need is the camera. I mean, I don't think any of it's proprietary. But it's just like it's kind of a no-brainer to apply it to Mario Kart, I guess. Yeah. I mean, look, my initial reaction and continued reaction to this is make Mario Kart 9, you unbelievable assholes. But
which is what I said from the beginning.
Yeah. It's like this is like it's a cool demo. I'm sure it's fun once, but this is the definition of like a Christmas gift you use once, put away, and never take out of the closet again. Like it's just a waste of time.
You buy it for your kids, they play with it once, and then you hide it.
And then you hide it so you never have to deal with it again. Yes, that is also true.
I think the kids will want to keep playing with it though.
Maybe.
Eat this up, man.
It depends how well it works and how much setup it takes versus...
Because here's what's cool about it.
Versus how long you want to play the same track.
Yeah, I mean, there's something happening for the people who aren't playing. That's the thing. So while The sister is playing on the Switch. The brother is watching this car rip around the living room. I think kids will love it, honestly, up to a certain age anyway.
I think so, but for the same price as what this costs, you can get a much higher quality car that does the same thing.
I see somebody asking, how do you draw the course? See, that's what people are missing about this. You don't.
Well, you do.
You don't even look at the course while you're playing it. You look at the screen.
Right.
And the car.
It's the gates. Like basically the gates are what define it. And you basically, like the way you're showing that there, what you're basically doing is I'm sure there's a thing where you basically have to tell the Switch, this is the dimensions of the space this is in.
Right.
This is where each gate is. And then I bet you can draw whatever you want the track to be between each gate. Yep. And then it'll just make that the track on the screen, and then you just steer, steering along the track on the screen will automatically make the cart in real life drive that direction.
Right.
So you basically
you're not going to see the course layout on the ground.
Yeah, the only course layout on the actual physical ground are those gates.
And then
that's the
everything else. Like you'll see the cars following the course as you steer it in the game, but there's not going to be the lines on the ground for the car.
And the gates, I don't think the gates are like electronic or anything. They're just markers. They're just markers that tell you
the camera, the image on the gate.
Yeah, the camera. Yeah, the camera knows where it is. Yeah.
Yep. And that's it. I think it looks fun. If I had kids, I would absolutely buy this for them. And I would say it's for them, but it would really be for me, at least for the first couple hours until I got bored with it. But
well, I'm probably not in on this one, but if you do get it, please not only play it, but videotape your wife reacting to you playing it. I just want to see that you're doing what to the living room, sort of thing. Like
the other thing about it too is that it's basically $100 per cart. That's how you pay for it. You buy it and you get either Mario or Luigi and gates. And if you want to race, I don't even know if there is multiplayer racing. It doesn't seem like it from what we've seen so far.
There's shots in this where there's two carts on the track. So I think maybe, but I think you'd need two switches for it.
Probably, yeah.
I imagine paying $100 for Luigi. I wonder if if you get two, can you double the gates on the course? That would be one of my questions.
Interesting.
Or are they just all numbered 1 through 5?
Because you're going to have the gates from buying two of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wonder if you can make the course bigger.
That's exactly what I'm wondering.
Yeah. I mean, you could do some cool stuff with this where you go to, but you have to be able to hook up your Switch and everything still. So there are caveats.
And that could also be a big viral thing.
Yeah.
Like if, someone gets enough of them and like
sets up this track that's like 2 miles
their whole house
long.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like,
you could do cool stuff with it. When I was a kid, my dad had built a slot car track in our house and through the walls of the house and blah, blah, blah. He was huge, like the big slot cars, the ones that are like this big. And he built a track that literally he cut a hole through the wall and the track went through the wall. I was like 3. I never even got to play with it, but I've seen all the pictures and stuff of it. And my mom has told me about it. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if people do crazy stuff like that with this tech. But it is cost prohibitive and targeted squarely at kids. And yes, I would much rather get Mario Kart 9.
Yeah, and you can also get if you think that tech is cool, there are tons of cars that do that. Like they hook up to your tablet or your phone or whatever. And there are flying drone. I have a flying drone that does that. Like you literally can see it on your
program
thing, and you just
want it to go. And
no, you just fly it. It's like it actually comes with a VR thing, and you put your phone in it, and you put that on, and you
did that, and you can see
and you just watch
through the camera on the
It's
drone.
same tech.
Yeah, well, the AR is the different tech.
Well, the AR, it's all AR. Like that, that's a pretty simple fix for that. It's just, but knowing Nintendo, it'll probably work well. I just make Mario Kart 9, you goddamn cowards. Like I don't know. Like I don't get it.
They keep making money on 8. That's why they won't make 9.
Yeah.
Stop buying it, people. Next up, at least what I thought was the second biggest or coolest thing that Nintendo showed is Super Mario 3D All-Stars, which won't come as too big of a surprise to you guys because Matt and I talked about this like a month ago on GameFace and told you it was coming. And it did get announced officially. It's a collection of 3D Super Mario platformers. It's a trio of them. They did a pretty good job picking the games. It's Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy. two of those games would be probably in my top 3 platformers of all time. Super Mario Sunshine, I like more than most, but it's not in my upper echelon of 3D Mario games. But it is certainly the most unique of all the 3D Mario games, so I can see why they decided to include it. Also, it might be one of the most underplayed because it was a GameCube game, and the GameCube only oversold 20 million units. So there are a lot of people out there who have never played Super Mario Sunshine, so I understand why it was included, but I do not think it is one of the 3 best 3D Mario games. How do you feel about what they chose for this?
I mean, it's kind of inevitable. This is the first 3 3D Mario games, so there you go. It's fine. Like 64 is great. Galaxy's better, I think.
Oh yeah.
Would I prefer Galaxy 2 over Sunshine? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But like Sunshine, like you said, Sunshine is underplayed, deservedly so. I don't think Sunshine's a very good game. I would definitely call it the worst mainline Mario game. Just because it's not really doesn't really deliver the Mario
question.
Doesn't really deliver the Mario experience to me. Like it's so focused on like the weird flood thing that I don't feel like I'm playing a Mario game.
It's very different.
And then every once in a while, you get like the challenge courses where they take the fucking backpack off you and you get
and you're like now it's Mario.
Like, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah,
cool.
the red coin collecting, that stuff with like without the pack. But I like it. I like Super Mario Sunshine. I don't hate it, but
I just don't think it's very. I will say this: I think Mario Sunshine is like I like the atmosphere the most of maybe any Mario game, just because they really nail that sort of tropical sunshine place. Yeah,
it's the only Mario game with a consistent theme.
And like you can
Mario games, it's like now we're in the cold world, now we're in the desert world. Mm-hmm. Now
and like you can smell the beach.
Yeah, dude. They really nail it right down to the music and everything. And I think the NPCs are like one of the ugliest things I've ever seen.
The Delfino guy.
But they fit. They fit in the world. It makes sense somehow. So it has its charms, I guess is what I would say about Sunshine.
Also has that weird implication that Bowser Jr. might be Peach's kid. Which asks a whole different set of questions that I don't ever need answered, Nintendo. We don't ever need to explore that again. Thank you. But it's a good collection. It's like, look, Yank, that's a solid $60 you just spent.
Hell
right there.
yeah.
Like,
and it is full price. It is $60, but there is a caveat. It's only on sale for a limited time.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Taking a page out of the Disney vault there.
Why would they do that, Matt?
To guarantee the number of sales in a certain amount of time. And it worked, didn't it?
It'll work. I went and bought it. But now I found out that it's already
second biggest seller of the year.
Game of the year. So when I found out about this, Nintendo sends me review code. And I know I'll get code for this that I just download and I can play it that way. But I went and bought a physical copy of this because Nintendo said it's only on sale for a limited time. So I was like, I'm buying a copy of this. I'll never open it. And then someone gave me grief on the site for doing that, whatever.
It's not like there's a limited number of copies.
There's also it's not like there's a limited number of times the digital download will work. It's like I'm not depriving anybody of anything. They can still play the game. So anyway,
as long as they buy it before March.
Right. I went and bought a physical copy of the game, and then the next day, within like 48 hours of it being on sale, it became the second best-selling game of 2020. So my dreams of retiring on a sealed copy of Super Mario 3D All-Stars were dashed, but
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
Give it 10 years. Give it 10 years.
We'll see. But anyway, so
The Legend of Zelda on the NES just sold for $11,000. It's not like that didn't sell some copies, man.
That's true.
Like
That's true.
The Nintendo stuff becomes, even Super Mario Sunshine you can get a couple $100 for, but still sealed.
Yeah, that's true.
The Nintendo physical collection aspect is never going away. That is always going to be. People are always going to want to have a full set of Nintendo games on their
whatevers. Shelf. Yeah. So anyway, I got it, and now the value of it has obviously plummeted because millions and millions and millions of people bought it, and they should. It's going to be awesome. I will say this: the ports look really lazy. I mean, about as lazy as they could be. It looks like they started working on them when we talked about it on GameFace a month ago. I mean,
they're literally just up-reses.
That's it.
It's just all they are.
It's just the same games running on more powerful hardware. So, except there is one exception, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But these 3 games are basically just straight up ports, which for $60 to get 3 great 3D platformers, literally some of the best games in the history of the genre, sold.
Yeah, if you think about it as $20 a game, like that's pretty solid.
I saw a lot of people complaining on the site about how dirty the ports were, but man, you're getting 3 of them for $60. I really don't see where anyone can complain. And they're great freaking games, no matter how good they look. That's the bottom line. And
I think they will look pretty good in person because one thing that's very true is, especially like with Mario Galaxy, you take that Wii, even the Wii version, and stick it in Dolphin. Like that thing cleans up automatically real well.
Because their games are so simple. It's like the shapes are simple, the colors are simple. They're not trying to recreate humans to look as realistic as possible in most of their games. And that's generally where you get the uncanny valley. So yeah, I think they'll look fine. They're obviously going to play great. They did say that motion controls will be optional for Galaxy.
I do wonder if one of the reasons Galaxy 2 is not in there is because of the motion control aiming for the Yoshi stuff.
It's possible. It's very possible. I mean, the motion controls in Galaxy 1 are not that obtrusive. Like,
no. They don't need to be very precise.
Yeah. I mean, they're just kind of fun. Like, I actually didn't mind them. It's just that you're collecting the gems with the waggle or whatever. Like, it almost became just like this therapeutic thing. It's like, finish it all, clean it all up. Finish it all, clean it all up. So I didn't mind them that much, but they are making it optional for those of you who do not want to use them, which I think choice is always a good thing. And then next up, this came as a completely separate thing yesterday, I guess it was. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is coming to Switch before the end of the year, I would add, and it is a prequel to Breath of the Wild set 100 years before the events of Breath of the Wild. So an extreme prequel. This kind of caught me off guard. Koei Tecmo creating it again. They did a really good job on the last one, though it wasn't particularly narrative driven. However, as a prequel to Breath of the Wild, this game has to be. How, on a scale of 1 to 10, how nervous are you about Koei Tecmo handling a narrative-driven Zelda game?
I mean, not too much, just because I see what they're doing. Like, they're basically backstorying the thing that we heard about.
Remember Metroid Other M?
Yeah, but that was Sakamoto.
That was Team Ninja that did that.
They didn't write the story. That was the guy who's been ruining Metroid for the last 25 years. Like, that was not Team Ninja's fault.
Yeah.
That was one guy specifically at Nintendo who had decided to appoint himself Samus's guardian because he had all these shitty ideas about what she should be, and he put them in the manga, and then he put them in that game, and then we have never talked about them again because fuck that guy. I'm not too worried about this because it's basically just like a Game of Thrones big battle story. You know, like it's when you think of, because this is the backstory that we heard about.
There's a clip that was in the B-roll for Call of Duty.
This is the backstory we heard about in Breath of the Wild, like when Link got put to sleep and then he wakes up at the beginning of Breath of the Wild. That was he's been put to sleep at the end of the events of this game. This is the last time everybody saw each other, and it's sort of there's that vague, like, sort of like, oh, what happened? Like, why is everybody so upset about it? Kind of thing. Right. We never quite see what happened or why it occurred.
Yeah, what's the calamity? Yeah.
So, this game's obviously going to tell that story, but that story, because it seems to be more of a big battle, sort of, big, epic clash between armies sort of thing, does seem pretty much up the Muso team's alley. Like, that's pretty much what they do with over and over and over again in the Samurai Warriors and Dynasty Warriors games. So it might not be that bad of a fit. And I'm sure Nintendo is supervising things as best they need to. I'm not here for the Zelda narrative in general most of the time. But I did like Hyrule Warriors a lot. So
yeah, I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. I'll put it that way.
So this is a welcome surprise. Like, a nice little kind of tide you over until Breath of the Wild 2 is ready thing.
Are you surprised Nintendo's letting Koei Tecmo do this?
No, because again, I think Nintendo is keeping very close tabs on everything.
This is Zelda canon right here. Everything. By a third party.
Oh, they don't give a shit about Zelda canon. Come on, like, what does that even mean?
Sure they do, Matt. It's very clear and easily explainable.
Which timeline are we talking about?
Exactly. Are you excited for it? Are you gonna? Yeah, me too.
Oh, I'll buy. I like what they've done with the Nintendo Muso crossover things. I liked Hyrule Warriors. I liked Fire Emblem Warriors. And I actually was interested in the story of what happened in this period. I thought that was the most interesting part about Breath of the Wild's very sparse story, was the mystery of like how everything really unfolded with the arrival of Calamity Ganon 100 years ago. So I actually do want to know what happened. So like this is a good move. I mean, would I rather have Breath of the Wild 2? Yes, but like this is fine. This is fine. Like this is a nice surprise.
Also, without a doubt, Breath of the Wild 2 is not coming this year.
Yes, I think that's very fair to say.
Without a doubt now, this is going to take its place. And Gohan Rage in chat brings up a good point. Next year is Zelda's 35th anniversary. Mm-hmm. And therefore, Breath of the Wild 2 just makes too much sense for the 35th anniversary of the franchise.
I think we'll get that. I think we'll get a Zelda 3D collection of some form. And probably a couple of little weird things to help with that. But I think we will see that they will acknowledge Zelda's 35th for sure, and no one will ever notice that Metroid also has an anniversary coming up. So
yeah, it's always the redheaded stepchild from Nintendo.
You ever seen that comic somebody did where it's like it's the whole Zelda 30th anniversary? I think in the background everybody's got like streamers and party hats, and up front it's just Samus with one Metroid, and the little Metroid's giving her a cupcake with a candle on it. It's like that's Metroid.
That's it. Yeah. Next. Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. So the not quite 3D platformer for Wii U, Mario platformer for Wii U, which was going to die on the vine on the Wii U if it were not brought forward, is being brought forward. But not only that, Nintendo is putting out a new expansion for the game with the Switch version. You remember this ever happening before, Matt?
Yeah, putting out a new expansion with a remaster.
Yeah.
Well, it's about.
I guess Amalur is about.
Amalur. It's about to have a Kingdoms of Amalur, and I can't. It rings a bell, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't put my finger on another instance.
Like I feel like that did happen, but I can't remember what it was.
But it sounds like it started.
I mean, it did again. Titan Quest. Like it wasn't immediate, but they did put out they did put an update out that remastered everything, and then like a couple months later, they put out the Norse expansion.
Yeah.
So it's not without precedent, but it's usually something reserved for more like kind of longevity PC centric. Like weirdo not indie, but like, B-list stuff. I can't remember like a AAA publisher doing something like that.
Why would Nintendo do this? Do you think it's a good use of Nintendo's time?
I mean, this is a good game, so
it is a good game.
I also think like because of the website digging they did, and it looks like a lot of this was supposed to go live and be announced in April. I feel like originally that Mario 3D collection was supposed to come out in the summer, and this is supposed to come out in the fall.
Probably.
But we've lost some time because of COVID and delays in terms of transitioning to that model. So instead we get Mario 3D collection this fall, and we get this in the spring. I think it's February this is. So I think this was originally going to be one of their big holiday releases, and it makes sense that they would want to put in a chunk of new content to make it feel a little fresher for a holiday release.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just glad that it's being rescued, basically, from a dead platform.
There's another game that needed to be rescued from the Wii U. That is true.
Yeah. There aren't many left now, really. I think last time we talked about it, this was like one of the only games we could come up with.
I think after this, you're down to pretty much Xenoblade Chronicles X and Fatal Frame.
Yeah,
which I feel is not going to happen.
That's never going to happen.
Xenoblade, I think, will happen
someday. Yeah,
but that's about it in terms of worthwhile stuff.
Yeah, it's now my Wii U can really sit in the closet for the rest of its life.
Yeah, I mean, unless you really want to play Devil's Third.
Yeah, no. Another game I told people to go buy though and keep it sealed. Maybe someday it'll be worth something. The Wii U
did
game.
Do that. I do have a sealed copy of it.
Yep. We'll see how that works out.
We'll see. You never know.
It's definitely not going to be released. I can guarantee that.
Yeah, usually takes about 10 years for Nintendo games to like start to skyrocket in the collector's market. So hang on to it.
Yep.
Hang on to this too, because again, even though it was one of the best sellers, yada yada yada, they're going to stop making them. They're going to be gone. And at some point, Switches with this game pre-installed digitally are going to cost more than Switches without it on it.
Yeah, for sure. It's just like PT, which I lost, unfortunately.
Yep.
And now, as Matt mentioned earlier, that next year for Zelda, they'll have a couple little things. And that's what we're going to talk about now for Mario's 35th anniversary. The first one is a brand new Game & Watch. Not only is it a brand new Game & Watch, it is a color Game & Watch. Yeah. which usually these are just like gray and dark gray LCD, not LED, LCD liquid crystal displays. This is like a little mini handheld that plays Super Mario Brothers. It is, however, $50. Were you aware of that, Matt?
Yeah. And that's why I will never own one.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like, I saw like the 3D Mario collection. I'm buying it, never open it. I saw this and I was like, oh, I'm going to buy that. It never,
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'll take
sort of how I felt about the Game Gear thing.
Yeah, that's too much too, man. Those little micro handhelds. It's just...
This has a bigger screen than those.
Yeah, exactly. It does. But $50, that's way too much for this, man. Like,
that's a lot.
That's purely a collector's item. That's it. Mm-hmm. Like, nobody's going to spend $50 to play Super Mario Brothers. Like, why would you? You can play it on like a freaking pregnancy test at this point. Like, there's no reason.
That's Doom.
Yeah, Doom. This week, someone played it on a pregnancy test, and you can play this on one too. So, the value for this is very minimal for me. If I were to buy it, it would be purely to buy it, never open it, put it in a closet somewhere, and come back in 30 years and see how much it's worth. That's pretty much all the draw that it has for me. And we're going to get done in time. We're going to make it, I think. And then finally, Super Mario Brothers 35. So somebody asked me a while ago, like, what is my game that I play nowadays when I just have a couple minutes? They said, you used to say it was Call of Duty. What is it now? That game for me now is Tetris 99 on Switch. I just pick it up, play a couple rounds while I'm waiting for my wife to put on makeup or whatever before we leave. Well, this is basically Tetris 99 set in Super Mario Brothers. You're competing against, instead of 99 players, you're competing against 35 other players. This looks really cool to me, Matt. I'm a big fan of Tetris 99. It's hard to explain the allure of it until you try it and give it a go. What it's like to compete. It's a little bit like Fall Guys or a Battle Royale game. Anytime it's you against the world, it just creates this other kind of feeling while you're playing. And my guess is that this game will do the same exact thing. It looks very inventive, very creative. I'm okay if they bring this aesthetic across a lot of their properties, in all honesty. Like,
I would love to play a Zelda of this angle.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant idea. Like, there's no way they could get Mario out to 99. So I don't know how they brand this. Like,
well, that's why they say Mario 35. You had 35 players.
It's just the number, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, but I got like the that idea. It reminds me of like there's some ROM hacks for like that are up in the the speedrun community and stuff. Like there's a ROM hack that is a mashup of Super Metroid and Link to the Past, because someone figured out that you've got all these different cores or whatever in the Super Nintendo.
Yep.
Super Metroid and Link to the Past never use the same core. Huh. So you can have those both loaded into memory in an emulator of the Super Nintendo and never overlap. So you can just keep them in there. And there's a ROM hack where every time you complete a certain a section of the one game, it's randomly switches to the next game, to the other game. And so you have to like get through a dungeon in Zelda, and then at the end of that, you might have to play like a Super Metroid section to then get to the next part of Zelda. So this reminds me of that a little bit, and it's this sort of like just take these old games that you can run, like you say, on a pregnancy test and just fuck with them. Like figure out a way that makes them new and figure out a way to just like go crazy with them. And that really seems to be what they've done here. And this is also much more appealing to me than Tetris 99 because I don't particularly like Tetris. So this is this is the same concept, but done with a more interesting property to me. So I'm big in favor of this thing. This is a cool idea.
Yeah, it even has the same interface as Tetris 99. Yeah. So a big part of it is like you can attack other people. Like in Tetris 99, when you're about to clear a block, you just tap the analog stick in one of 4 different directions to kind of say where you're going to send your blocks to. And that same interface is in this. So yeah, I think someday they'll come up with some kind of a term for this series that they've created. But right now it looks like I'm 2 for 2. I love Tetris 99 and it looks like I'm going to love this too. And it would take something like this to get me to play Super Mario Brothers again. I am over it. And something like this unique, clever twist, I'm all over it. So they have, as Matt said, they have found a way to revive a 35-year-old game in a way that will get this old guy to play it again. And then finally, this wasn't even related to Hyrule Warriors or Mario's 35th anniversary, but this week it was uncovered that Nintendo has filed a patent for standalone Joy-Cons. Now you're like, what does that mean? What it means is the Joy-Cons do not have the attachments, the rails on the side that you slide down into the Switch and connect it to the Switch. So people are like, what does this mean? What does it mean, Matt? What do you think it means?
Switch Pro is a console only. That's my guess.
What it sounds like. That, or there's something going on with PC maybe, although I think they already have Joy-Cons working with PC anyway.
Yeah, you can hack that together, but then why would they do that? Because they're not going to do PC stuff. My guess, that sounds to me like the new kind of Joy-Con for a system that does not go portable.
Right. Yeah. So do you think the Switch Pro might just be a console?
I mean, that's what I would hope it to be. I mean, that's what I'd want. Like, I don't want to impose my preferences on what I think will happen, but it sure looks that way if that's what they're patenting.
It does. Do you think that's big news?
Maybe. Like, it's big news.
It's the right move
it's big news for me because it means I'm buying another Switch. Like, that's what that means.
I will too if it gets more powerful. You know.
Yeah. I think it's big news in the sense that like they are sort of subverting what the Switch's whole gimmick is in the name of giving us a more powerful and capable piece of hardware, which is, let's be honest, rather non-Nintendo of them.
It is. Yeah.
So I think it's good. Like this is promising news to me. So I'd say it's big in that regard, and that they're catering to a crowd that we don't usually get catered to by this company. So I'm into it.
The crowd has been asking them for something like this for a really long time. So they are listening. It does seem like. I can't think of any other reason why there would be standalone.
It wouldn't. Neither can I. Unless it's for
platforms, and we know that's not going to happen. So
I wouldn't think so, unless they're really, they're going a really weird direction with the mobile game thing. Like,
that could be possible. They could be mobile controllers, but I don't know.
If you got
mobile controllers,
you can pair Bluetooth with just about anything, so that could be it. But but even if that was the case,
isn't that overkill? Like, do you need like the gyros and the IR and all that stuff in there for a mobile controller? Probably not. So I think you're probably right. Probably the next Switch console that's rumored right now to come next year is just a console. That seems like the most likely result. Or it could just be a patent that they filed to cover their butts and they're not going to do anything.
That could be too. Like, just
one or the other.
Just in case we want this one day.
One extreme to the other.
I mean, that's what patents are. Like, that's a valid way to go about it.
Absolutely. So there you go. A gigantic week for Nintendo, a gigantic week for Microsoft, and it's probably going to end up being a gigantic week for PlayStation before it's all said and done. However, we're going to have to discuss PlayStation stuff on next week's show. So it's time for Q&A. This is your cue to get questions into the chat. Go at Sifted Games. That way we can pluck them out from everyone else's comments and we can get through it pretty quickly. We're running short on time, so we can't answer a ton, but we'll answer at least a few. But before we do that, let's hear a word from our sponsor.
Do you live life outdoors? DeShazer Ryan Realty has a nice level lot just outside of Libby, Montana that's perfect for you. With access to Crystal Lake via shared dock and boat ramp, it's an ideal location to build the getaway home of your dreams or just park your RV. Enjoy fishing, paddleboarding, kayaking, boating, and more just a few steps away. It can be yours for just $72,500. No matter where you live, contact Doug DeShazer at 406-291-1643 or DeShazerMT@gmail.com. Even if you're not looking for property in Montana, he can connect you with local realtors in your area who can help you. If you want to see more, head over to DeShazerRyanRealty.com. That's DeShazerRyanRealty.com.
Thanks again to DeShazer Ryan Realty. If you need a house or land anywhere in America, call him. Let's keep the money in the family. All right, it's time for some Q&A. The first question comes from Estmont. He asks, do you think that 2K graphics will look good on 4K TVs? Yes.
Yeah, they'll look fine.
1080p graphics look great on my 65-inch 1080p TV. The tech works with the tech. So yeah, I think it's going to look great. That's what we were saying earlier. I don't know if you joined later, but I was saying I don't think the average person is going to be able to look at 2K graphics running and be like, that's not 4K. I just don't. I think people like us will. I think videophiles will. But I think the average person will not be able to tell the difference between.
And
2K.
Also remember, most Blu-rays of movies are 2K masters that are then up-res to 4K by the TV in most cases. So you're used to looking at it anyway.
Yep.
To be honest.
Yeah. Again, why I think the cheaper version of Series S has a chance to sell as well or better than Series X. Yakov 226. What 3D Zelda games will be on the 35-year collection? Ocarina of Time, definitely.
Well, that's a good question. I have my theory on this is that there will be more than one, and that there will be an Ocarina Majora's Mask 3D, like the 3DS games. I think they will do an up-res collection of them. I think they will package Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD from the Wii U into their own thing, and I think Skyward Sword HD will be its own thing.
Interesting. Okay.
That would be my ideal lineup. Alternately, I think they will do an Ocarina Majora's 3D package and Skyward Sword on its own, and Twilight Princess and Wind Waker will have to wait for another year.
Okay.
That would be my guess. Or if they want to do another 3-pack, it's Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, and Skyward Sword, like this Mario 3D collection as their own, like a full price $60 thing. But but considering, I guess it depends on how much work they want to do for this. If they want to do a quick and dirty Skyward Sword update the way that these Mario games are, then maybe. But it feels to me like Skyward Sword being adapted for the Wii and for the Switch and the Joy-Cons would require a lot more work than that.
What they should do is just put out like an Ocarina of Time complete collection. So you have Ocarina of Time, you have Majora's Mask, then all the stuff from Ura Zelda, which was under development for the 64DD.
Well, that's already out there as the Master Quest stuff.
All of it, though?
That's what the Master Quest is.
I thought that they didn't include everything that they had created for Ura Zelda.
I mean, I don't think they have the Oni link fully the way they originally planned to implement it, but he is in Majora's as far as I know.
Okay.
But the Master Quest that was in that GameCube collection and was integrated into the 3DS version.
Is that worth money now?
What?
That Master Quest disc.
Oh yeah.
Is it? Oh, good.
A couple $100.
Really? Nice.
Yeah, if it's sealed, I think. Yeah.
I don't know if mine is or not.
Everything on the GameCube, all the GameCube stuff like that, and the Ocarina, like there's the other Ocarina limited disc, the Ocarina remaster disc or whatever. Like that's worth a lot. Like that whole era is worth. I mean, none of them are worth as much as Cubivore, but you take what you can get.
That's weird. I don't know why that's worth so much money.
Cubivore?
Yeah,
because it was very low print run.
Vincent is saying, related, Bloomberg is saying Nintendo is telling developers to make their games 4K ready and prep for the new Switch next year.
Mm-hmm.
So
sounds like a console to me.
Do you remember when we talked about the Switch Pro? I was like, wait a minute. How are you going to get 4K into a handheld? You're not.
Yeah.
It's starting to add up now. You're not. It's going to be a standalone console that runs games in 4K.
Mm-hmm.
It sure seems like it's headed that way.
I mean, that's what I wanted, so I'm not going to complain. But, part of me never really thought they'd do it.
Yeah. Justin Horman, Johnny Hurricane, thank you for Twitch Prime. You guys rock. You guys rock anyway, but you rock more today. Let's see. I don't want to get you started talking about movies because we only have 4 minutes and you'll never get it done before then. Mark Simpson, have you considered regular guest appearance from people like Jim Sterling? He'd be an amazing POV. Oh yeah, I would love, there's a million people that Matt and I would love to have on GameFace. They're all doing their own stuff and they're doing their own shows. I would love to have guest appearances. When we first started the show, we had guest appearances and it became impossible. I'm trying to get somebody on the show every week. Once we had one person cancel, that was it, because you promise someone's going to be there and they don't make it, and then you look like a fool. So once that happened the first time, I was pretty much done. But look, I'm not against having a guest appearance here or there. I wouldn't mind getting Adam on the show to talk with Matt and I about games for an episode or something. Minority Game, should I get a new system if I don't have a 4K TV? Yes. Yeah. I don't have a 4K TV. I'm getting them. I may have one. I may have to buy one. I have to spend a lot of money here in the next 3 months, unfortunately. I may have to have the family buy an Xbox for me.
You can get some pretty solid 4K TVs for much less than...
They are really cheap now. Yeah, they've come out a lot.
I had to do some research for someone on that a little while ago. And the one she got is pretty solid, like 300 something. Like it's obviously the ones I buy are ridiculous, but but you can get it's not like it used to be. Like it used to be if you get like a $300 4K panel, like it was garbage. Like that, but that's not true anymore. Like you can get some real good stuff now.
I think what people are forgetting is that you don't have to have a 4K TV to get the advantages of these consoles. Playing these games in 1080p are still going to blow your mind because they're able to display stuff that no other 1080p game was ever able to display without the hardware just melting down. So yes, there are huge advantages to still owning these consoles. Just the fact that you're only going to be able to play some of the exclusive games if you don't have.
And ray tracing still matters at 1080p. Like it's you're still going to see a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Ed Rock the Truth. Are you disappointed that Nintendo didn't do more with the 3D All-Stars? Like Mario 64 only being 4:3 ratio, not including Galaxy 2, or which I think is better than the first. By the way, I'm getting that Game & Watch. I grew up with them, still have my Popeye Game & Watch. Fair enough. I have a lot of Game & Watches too. I have several. And I got one not that long ago from the Nintendo Points Club before they closed down. I think that was Ball. We talked about this. We did not bring up the 4x3 thing. You do bring up a good point.
Yeah.
And that
is weird.
That is inexcusable, I would say.
Yeah. Because you can do that. That's a pretty simple. That's
not a big deal. I mean, that does show you how little effort they put into them. So it is very telling. So I agree with that. But otherwise, these are just 3 great platformers, and I'm excited to play them again. And I think most people should be too. Okay, let's see if we can get 1 or 2 more in. Kadaz, what's your favorite collectible and why? Matt,
collectible?
You're the one who collects them.
In the sense of what?
Oh, I don't know if he's talking about collectibles in games or if he's talking about like Funko, which just went under, by the way. Did you see that?
No.
Yeah, the Funko figurines, they just filed for bankruptcy. What's GameStop gonna do? Their stores are gonna be empty. Maybe they'll actually fill it with video games. Who would have ever thought that?
Just because they file for bankruptcy doesn't mean they're gonna stop making stuff. Like
I know.
There's a difference. There's a distance there, but it is coming.
I mean, I don't know what a collectible is. Like I collect house records and video games and stuff like that, but collectibles are different to everyone, I think. Like my wife collects like Christmas tree ornaments. Like when we travel somewhere, like when we get something to remember where we went, we get a Christmas tree ornament. And then when we put up the tree every year, we're like, oh, remember when we went to Amsterdam or remember when we went to Barcelona or whatever. Everyone collects something different. So it's hard to say if that's what he's asking. I think he might be asking what's the best collectible inside a video game, though. And in that case, it has to be Mario Stars for me.
Definitely satisfying.
Yep. When they pop out, and when you collect them, they feel great both ways.
Yeah, all the kind of the platformer, goal items are pretty good that way. I think the Mario Galaxy stars are the most satisfying when you get them. For like that animation is probably my favorite when you get the stars. Although I do have a weird fondness for Banjo-Kazooie's Jiggies.
Yeah.
When you get what it's like, like that whole thing is, something satisfying about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. But that's what all the great games do. They make those moments satisfying. And one thing I would say too, that about Avengers use of Rumble is amazing. I hardly ever bring that up when we're talking about games. The force feedback and Rumble in Marvel's Avengers is awesome. Like, if you really pay attention to it during cutscenes and stuff, it's like some next level stuff. Like, play it and check it out. Like, think about it. Video Game Fury 79, Cody S. Carter, Call of Duty 01. Great episode for you. Thank you guys all for Twitch Prime at the end of the show. Let's see if we can answer one more. Oh, Scorefear says, heads up, I posted in the forums on Sifted about sifters coming together to make a game. Have a look. So there you go. If any of you guys are interested in maybe making games, but you're like, I can't do it by myself, there's a crew in our forum. Also, have you created a crew in our forums? You should probably do that. If you're a premium member, you can create your own private forum. Another perk of being a subscriber or a patron to Sifted, you can create your own private forum that you can invite people to and nobody else can get into. They're called crews. And I highly recommend that you create a crew for the game development team. And as people go to the forums and say, hey, I'm interested, add them to the crew. And you guys have your own private forum that you can use forever and work on your project together. So anyway, there you go. Head to the forums if you're interested in making games. There's people on Sifted that are already doing it for big publishers and developers, but there's also some indie folks who are trying to just get started, and you might find someone who can help you become a game developer. All right.
Orbs and Crackdown says Bunk Go. That's a good call.
That was a fun collectible. Yep. That's it for episode 228. I'm Shane Satterfield, your humble host, also the founder of Sifted. You can find me on Twitter at Dinfire. You can find Matt at MKyle, and you can find the site at Sifted Games. And Sifted is always spelled SIFTD. If you're listening to this show out on the wilds of the internet, maybe you're on Spotify, maybe you're on Stitcher, maybe you're on iHeartRadio, maybe you're on Apple Podcasts, wherever you are. If you enjoy the show and you enjoy the entertainment that we're giving you every week, please head on over to patreon.com/sifted and kick us a couple bucks a month. It's a cup of coffee to you, but it means the world to us, and we will really appreciate it. So I mentioned last week that we may not be doing a show next week. Jared is out next week doing some big gig, and he can't do the show. We're about 50-50 on that right now. I'm going to try to do it. We may not be able to find another TriCast or TD. If we can't, we won't. It was very nice to get a couple of days off this weekend. Personal thanks to Vincent for jumping in and handling curation over the weekend. It was good to get a couple of days away. And all I ended up doing was playing video games anyway, but at least I wasn't working. Which, it's funny how there's a difference. It's like when you're being forced to do something versus when you just want to do something. But anyway, if you would like to help us out, head to patreon.com/sifted. It makes a big difference for us, and we need every dollar. So follow us at Sifted Games on Twitter if you want to know whether the show is happening next week. If you're on the site, you're going to know. We'll keep you up to date on all the latest happenings. Until then, we'll see you next week. Maybe. GameFace is up and out.